Warning. It is the opinion of the 4th Street Productions LLC and the Working Perspectives podcast that we should inform you that some of the language used in this recording could possibly be considered offensive. You have been warned, so if you decide to listen to the recording, then don't complain about the language. Hi, hello, how are you? Thanks for stopping by. Today we're going to talk to some real people about some real things, living real lives, doing real stuff. This is the Working Perspectives podcast. I'm Matt Lavelle, accompanied today by Jalen Dubb, Justin Richardson, the Heartstopper, Janny Hilo, and our guest today is the joke man himself, Jackie Martling. You can find all our stuff and all our content and all podcast platforms and YouTube at Working Perspectives Podcast. You can also on Instagram at Working Perspectives Podcast, and you can join us on the Twitter and the TikTok at Working P Pod. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, please email us at workingperspectives@gmail.com, and please like and subscribe so we can keep this party going. Jalen Dubb, how you doing, baby?
14-year-old Justin is pumped for this show, yo.
Dude,
He wouldn't believe it if I told him.
Amen to that. Jana, how are you?
I'm good. Jackie's kind of hot.
Jackie's got a bod. We'll say it, And speaking of guys with bods, this is the Working Perspectives podcast. Let's get this thing started. Let's go.
It's our objective to be effective by voicing societies. Working perspective, exploring your day and how you get paid. Launching a new episode every Tuesday. Your day can transform while we inform with new episodes available on every platform. So check out our vibe and how we get live. Then do us a solid. Share and subscribe. We're just sharing. We're just sharing. We're just sharing. Working perspectives.
Interest to whoever we're just about to say.
Hey,
You're recording.
no need to apologize, Jackie. Kidding me? We're just happy you're here. And that's the same injury from horsing around all those years ago, huh?
It is, but much later. It's like
Yeah.
it's been reheard. Oh, so you did read the book,
Yeah.
and it's funny. We drove past that house. You know what? This is all good. So
Yeah.
start whenever you want.
Go right ahead.
You can hear me all right and everything.
We hear you perfectly.
All right.
So you were saying you drove by that house where you hurt your knee in the wrestling match?
It was a very every move I'm going to grunt, so I apologize for that.
It's all right. We all do
That's what I
it.
do, yo.
Yeah.
It could be worse. The fact that it's healing, so that's what's great.
Yeah.
The house was like a block from the high school, and
Okay.
my very good friends from New York City, there were like 10 kids in the family, and they moved into this incredible house, like from the 1600s or something, like from the 1700s.
Oh wow.
And my cousin John is the town historian of Oyster Bay. He's my distant cousin.
Uh-huh.
And he was going to take a tour of Oyster Bay, and he got a bunch of people to come in an air-conditioned bus. And he actually had Liz Roosevelt, who's like Theodore Roosevelt's third cousin or something, like she's like 90 years old.
Okay.
And he's going to take us around Oyster Bay, and we get across from the high school, and he didn't know I know anything. And he says, and this is the Albertson house, one of the oldest. I think he said the oldest house on Long Island. And I'm like, how could I not know that?
Yeah.
And I said to my buddy, I said, Mike, that it was in that yard, wrestling in the mud and the beer, that I destroyed my knee. And here is the oldest house on Long Island. Now I'm the oldest cripple on Long Island. So it's kind of
Yeah. Was it your low knee or your high knee?
my kidney. And
Can't get one past you.
it just hurt so bad.
Oh.
And then a couple of weeks later, what happened was it ripped the cartilage.
Oh.
But then a few weeks later, it ripped it a little worse. And then I got back to college, and it ripped the rest of the way. And holy Christ.
Yeah.
And I dropped out of school and, had an operation on my knee, and then drank for the rest of the term. And it was a wonderful, wonderful time. But then it got injured along the way. But it made it like, what is it? It's like got to be 40 years at least.
Yeah.
But
It was
finally,
yeah. No, go ahead. Sorry.
no, it's just nasty, you know.
Yeah.
But
Blessing
my
in
sister got a
disguise.
knee
though.
replaced. My sister got a knee replaced, and then she got her hip replaced. I said, "Listen, if she can go through this, I can go through it." So,
Damn right.
and it sucks. Oh, it sucks, man.
Oh.
But once it gets going, so now I'm good to go.
Nice.
So,
Good. They hook you up with any sweet pain meds?
yeah, you know, it's very weird because I'm so scared of that crap. You know, I quit drinking like 22 years ago, and it's like frightening. When I got operated on at Michigan State, I mean, you should see the scar that was there. I mean, like they might as well have done it with a hatchet.
Ugh.
And when I first was in the bed and coming out of it, you ring for pain. And I rang, and the nurse came in with a shot.
Yeah.
And she gave me a shot. And in like a minute, you know, it was morphine. And like within a minute, I was like dancing in my mind. It was unbelievable. And then however much long later, it was hurting like crazy again.
Yeah.
So I pushed the button. And this time when she came in, I am not exaggerating. I can see her now. She was like the wicked stepmother in Cinderella, and she was carrying a red velvet pillow with the shot on it. And she gave me the shot, and I went to the moon again.
Yeah.
And the next time I was in pain, I rang for her, and I'm waiting for this goddess to come in with the needle on a pillow.
Yeah.
And there's a little pill sitting there. And I said, "What the hell is that?" And she said, "Well, you can't have any more shots because it's they can become addictive." I said, "It's too late, lady. I want my shot." You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So they know their stuff. So I didn't even use all the oxy they gave me. You know.
Right. You
Right
know?
now, introduce me. I interrupted you before.
So
who's the young lady?
This is Jana. This is our co-host Jana, and then this is Justin, and I'm Matt. Obviously, we talked about.
Okay,
Yeah.
Jana or Jenna?
Jana.
The first one,
Jana.
Jana.
Jana. Okay.
Yeah.
And who's the other guy?
Justin.
Jana and Justin. All right, I got that down. And your name's Harry?
And Jackie.
Okay, that's it.
It's Matt.
Gary.
Oh, don't be silly, of course.
I'm kidding. Yeah.
Pat.
Jana's had a rough week. Her car got shot 9 times in a drive-by. Then her old man had a stroke, and then she lost her job all in the same week.
Hey, that's nothing. I sprained my ankle this morning. Wait, how much please tell me that was all horseshit.
No,
No,
all true.
it's true.
All true.
True.
What are you doing in the line of fire of a drive-by?
Living in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I live in Philadelphia, so
Oh, enough said.
Yeah.
basically just living. Yeah.
I love Philadelphia. Oh, I love Philadelphia. I don't like that,
Yeah.
but I love Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So, Johnny, are you a comic?
Yes.
Get me
Just
a gig.
kidding. No.
When's the next time you're in Philadelphia, Jackie? Do you know?
I just did a bunch of stuff there.
I saw you were in Glenside not that long ago at the Lulu Club,
that
which I've never been to. I was looking because I've done a couple open mics, and that place in Jenkintown, I didn't even know it existed.
Yeah.
The Lulu, it was just it's like a private golf club, and the guy was a huge fan. And I said, "Listen, I got to charge you a lot of money to come that far.
Yeah.
You got to book the opening act, so I have somebody to talk to." But they were all so great. I mean, but it was a golf outing, so they were drunk and stoned and idiots. But they at least let me get to the end of a few jokes, so I was fine. And that was my first time out. I think it had been 7 weeks since my operation. This is my first time out. I wasn't even worried about the show as much as lasting in the car for 4 hours. And then when they called me, when my friend Peter Bales, who was opening, introduced me, I forgot my cane. I just walked up there. It's very like goddamn adrenaline. You know, I had to be in the Riviera like 20 or 30 years ago. I had a bad leg, and I went up there with, it might even been with the walker. The next thing you know, I just threw it to the side. You know, you get going, and then afterwards you feel like you're gonna die. You know.
Yeah.
So none of that was true about the shootout.
No, that was all true. That
All
was 100% true.
And somebody
Okay.
died.
No. Somebody got shot twice, but he is fine.
No, I mean the other things that happened to you.
Oh no, he had a stroke.
I got this, Matt.
Yeah. Go ahead.
My dad had a mini stroke, but he's okay.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fan of the show, the guy. Fan of the show, listen to the show. So
Good guy.
yeah. Nice.
Hi, Pop.
And then you got
Take it
fired.
easy.
Did you get fired in person or email?
Email.
Oh my God.
You got fired?
I
Yeah.
got fired.
What do you do for a living?
Well, I was working at Prudential in marketing, but that's not what I usually do. I'm usually a nanny. So I went back. Now I have a nanny job. I'm starting tomorrow.
Yeah, that's your
Those are
passion.
pretty disparate,
It was.
like Prudential and Nanny.
Well, I was nannying like 25 years. And then I was like, all right, let me go get a big girl job so I can have some insurance and some 401k and things like that. But yeah, they were like, fuck you. So I'm going back to nannying.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Hey, let me
Fuck
ask you a
that.
question because I don't know who to ask. My girlfriend made it through about 5 minutes of this show. Everybody's raving about this show, Severance. And I started watching. And if you just came from a corporate job like that, I mean, the closest I came to a corporate job was K-Rock, but they're all kind of the same. And this is such a strange premise, but everybody's raving about it. And I was about 20 minutes in and I'm confused. And Barbara goes, I don't know what's going to happen. I said, of course you don't know what's going to happen. It's a show. Jesus Christ. She watches the same movie. She watches I Remember Mama every goddamn night. I said, no surprises.
Yeah.
It's a weird show. Of course we don't know. If we knew, we would. And
Yeah.
I
I
thought
don't know,
maybe you
Sam.
guys
What
would go,
was
we've seen that. It's so great. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
No, you're right. I'm with you. It's crazy. It's Adam Scott from Parks and Rec, if you know who that is. And then
Yeah.
I did
you-
see a couple of episodes of that.
you live like two different lives. You either eat
yes,
this pill,
that is so weird.
you show up at work, at 8 o'clock in
No,
the
no,
morning.
no, don't say
Yeah.
anything because I'm only 20 minutes in.
It's
And
nutty.
they don't set
It's
up
really
anything.
weird.
It's the
It's really
reveal
weird.
happens so slow. You don't know what's going to happen. Like, don't tell me, then one day you wake up and you're Chinese. I don't want to know that yet. Let me figure it out.
How did you
That's
know?
Westworld.
But
Westworld.
it's a hoot. It's a hoot,
Yeah. Do you watch any
And
other
now I'll
shows?
tell you that girl in the opening, every scene, she gets a little bit prettier, which is really, that's just so great. Just so great. But don't tell me nothing else. Nothing else.
Yeah, it makes the show, really. Very nice. Okay. What about The Godfather Part 1 or Part 2? Which one do you think's better, Jackie?
Yes.
Good answer.
Yeah. All right. I see.
Did you watch The Offer?
The Offer was fantastic.
Oh my God.
So
my
good.
God. And now Ruddy is making a show about the making of the guy. It's
He's making another.
He's making a show about the making of The Offer.
I mean,
everybody just if you want those shows to stop, he's just got to die.
But
it's so much fun. I thought that was so great.
Great show. Great. He's the same. Justin's a big Hogan's Heroes guy. So I didn't know this either till watching the show, but Phil Ruddy, right, is his name.
Al Ruddy.
Al Ruddy. You're right. Sorry. Yeah. He did Hogan's Heroes. And then after Hogan's Heroes, he kind of had that under his belt. That was his hit. And then he went and made like one thing in between and then went and made The Godfather, which was the #1 selling book of all time at the time. Yeah. And the show, The Offer, fantastic show. Absolutely fantastic.
But if you ask 10 people how The Godfather get made, you'll get 10 hours. If you read, what's his name? The crazy guy.
Evans.
Yeah. If you read Bob Evans' book.
Yeah.
And you read it's just so phenomenal. And that, I didn't watch Hogan's Heroes, but somebody turned me on to the biography, the autobiography of the little French guy in Hogan's Heroes.
Okay.
Did you guys not know the show that well?
No, I know who you're
talking.
talking about, but I don't know his real name. Yeah.
I'll think of it. Carey.
Okay.
Bob Carey, something.
And you had an autobiography?
I guess it came out a while back, but somebody told me to read it, and I read it. And he was, in Auschwitz, not Auschwitz, but quote unquote, he was in a prison camp. He lived in Paris, and then at some point they came around and collected people, and he was one of the people they collected.
What?
And he went to the prison camp, but he entertained people and sang and did whatever, which got him, he slid by here and there, and he was on there for like a little less than 2 years.
Yeah.
And then he worked his way out and got to Paris and found his way to New York. And in the early 50s, he wound up on some shows, but he wound up on Hogan's. He spent 2 years in a Nazi prison camp, and then he was in a sitcom about being in a Nazi prison camp. It's
about being
just a
typecasted.
phenomenal story. And it turns out that a very good friend of mine is his cousin. I got a friend that's related to everybody. That's a whole nother story. We'll go into it.
Robert Clary, was that his name?
Robert Clary. Robert Clary.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting. Oh my God.
That's phenomenal.
I can't even wrap my brain around that, you know.
Yeah. Did you see, I think there was a movie that came out recently on HBO. It was about a boxer in a concentration camp that he'd survived. But like one of the backstory is like they would bet on the boxer, like, you know, the guys fighting each other in the camp, the different inmates fighting each other's in the camp. And this guy was like a sure bet. So they kept him around, you know what I mean? So it's kind of the same thing where he wasn't entertaining guys, but he was,
If you got something to sell or, you know, maintain, you know, his whole family, like 2 people out of 20, you know, it's just pretty horrible.
Yeah.
Well, that's enough of a breakdown.
Yeah.
But The Godfather was great. And Godfather 2 is great. And The Offer is great.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those shows. If all of a sudden it's on TV, you just stop what you're doing. You sit down, you watch it, you know, just like Goodfellas. And it's so despicable. They're murdering, killer, horrible, disgusting people. But you can't, you know, there's no explaining it. I read very little. And I read The Godfather. When I got it, I read through it and started over and read it again. I think it's the only book I ever read twice.
Really?
It's like, you know, oh my God, you know.
Luca
Brasi hacked somebody to death. And then the other guy is already dead because he swallowed the towel because he was so frightened. I can never get that image out of my mind, man.
Yeesh. Man, Luca Brasi, all-time character. I didn't know this. Like in the show, Lou Ferrigno plays him in the show. You know what I mean? Because it's like apparently the Luca Brasi was like a real leg breaker that they were like threw him in there, and they saw him practicing his lines, and they're like, no, keep that. This is gonna work. He's, you know, like, you know, and then becomes like one of the all-time, you know, may your first child be a masculine child. You know, the best.
You know, a friend of mine, Lou Martini Jr. His father was obviously Lou Martini, and he was slated to play Luca Brasi.
Oh,
and
really?
like a day or two before they started shooting, he dropped dead of a heart attack. So they had to come up with a Luca Brasi within like a day or two, which is just when he told me that, I was like, so odd, because the guy they came up with is, I can't imagine somebody being any better.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And you know that Lou Ferrigno is the integral part of that one Howard Stern story, right?
No, which one?
Lou Ferrigno is the guy isn't he the guy that's deaf?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And he would come on the show. He wouldn't come on the show. Fred would pretend he was Lou Ferrigno.
Yeah.
And it was always funny. And I know, not Fred. Al, I'm sorry. I'm still a little rusty here and there.
It's okay.
But Al, what's his face? Oh, God. The guy who came on the show and did impressions here and there.
Yeah.
He was Lou Ferrigno. And I was sitting there next to him, and he Lou Ferrigno, Howard, you know.
Yeah.
And we were on from 4 to 8, but whenever there was a home Knicks game, we were on from 4 to 7. So that means at 7 o'clock, the entire tri-state area is watching the Stern Show, or listening to the Stern Show rather, because the Knicks are about to start.
Yeah.
And Al is sitting there, and he talking like this. And Howard used to read liners, which are like, you know, ads that you'd actually read, you know, before we started making them up as we went along, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And one of the liners Howard had to say just before the show was going to end and we're going to turn it over to Knicks basketball, Howard said, and the Knicks want to make sure that you have lots of Coca-Cola and snacks on hand for the game. And I heard snacks. So I wrote down snacks and then wrote down snatch with a question mark and put it in front of Al. And he said, "When you say Howard?" Lou, I said, "You got to have lots of Coca-Cola and snacks on it." And Howard caught on immediately. "No, you can't say that, Howard. That's filthy. You get no, Lou." I said, "Snacks." "There you go again. There you go." And the whole world was listening to this. It was. And that's the first time I wrote down a note and passed it. And oh God, and
that turned into your thing.
Everybody has tried so hard to find that. It's got to exist somewhere.
Yeah.
What? How you can't say that, man? You can't say Al Rosenberg. Oh, I would.
That's right.
So
You're
bad.
right.
Al, a great guy. All right.
No,
Well,
that's
enough of
that
that.
is
Where'd we leave off? Robert Carey or The
what
Godfather? Or
what would you say? I will have you thought about like because the stuff you guys know, I remember we were watching we would listen to it as kids and be like, oh my God, they're talking about like go nuts. But like, have you ever thought like it's one of those things like Blazing Saddles? You can't like if you made Blazing Saddles today, they'd crucify you, right?
Oh.
Like half the stuff that you guys did on the show, you'd be murdered. You know what I mean, right? Like how does
so much more than half, because the whole idea. See, I left the show. I wanted more money, but it was wrote a line in the sand and everything.
Mhm.
But they came to me, and I was supposed to be the voice of Raw Dog. And at the time, Raw Dog was they play a Sam Kinison clip, and they play a Henny Youngman clip, and they play a Dice clip, and I was supposed to, hey. And that was Sam Kinison. Now here's Dice. And maybe I put a little joke or a little snippet. I was just doing the in-between stuff.
yeah.
And I had a contract ready to go. My lawyer had and it was a lot of money. And then all of a sudden they said, we're taking the deal off the table because we think we can get Howard Stern. And I said to myself, why would you bullshit me? If you don't want me to do the gig, just tell me. Because in my mind, there was absolutely no way that Howard would go to satellite radio. Because to me, the whole genius of the show, the whole fun of the show was dancing around the rules and getting right up and stomping the line,
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're playing football with no lines on the field. What the fucking sense,
Yeah.
And then a couple months later, Howard Stern leaves for Sirius. I was like, well, at least they weren't lying.
Yeah.
But it teetered on the edge all the time. So if they roll that bar just a little bit, everything disappears except what time is it, Robin?
Yeah. that honestly too, that's one of the things like they had said it is when they would do the ratings, it's half the people watch because they want to hear what he says next. The other half hate him, but they still want to hear what he says next. You know what I mean? Because you guys are pushing the envelope and you had such a loyal fans, right?
Well, I have every note I ever wrote for him, and I have them in my mother's attic. And I actually, within the last couple months, I'm working with a guy, and I'm literally going to sell the notes, or you would not believe what I have. I have every note I ever wrote. I got all the Sternacs. I got all the scripts. I got all the song parodies, all the Would Ye's, all the ones Gary repeat after me's. And they're all just so fantastic. But the people that were listening in the 90s, if they were listening in 92 and it was 12 million people listening, 2 years later, we still had 12 million people. But so many dropped out and replaced or went on. So that we're talking about millions and millions and millions of people. And in the 90s, it's 30 years later. Yeah. So the people that listen to the Stern Show have not only made a lot of money, a good percentage of them, because the smart people love the show. They already have their houses. They have their boats. They have their motorcycles. They have their vacation homes. What are they going to do? And so, like a original note from the Howard Stern Show, framed in their man cave, is such a conversation piece. I think I'm sitting on a gold mine. There's so many people that tell me, what are you waiting for? I had to wait till I was broke enough. And I guess that's talking to you. That's the line.
Yeah. Oh, sure. It sure is. Yeah. Join us. Yeah. No, you're not kidding. And for those listening, so this is what's going on, is that Jackie was on the Howard Stern Show for 18 years. And when he was head writer on the show, his booth was next to Howard's. There was a wall in between. Jackie would write out notes and hand them over to Howard to say the joke.
All right. What happened was when we started working, he'd sit here and he had a loose leaf open on one side and a loose leaf open on the other side with an opening in the middle so he could see Robin and talk to her. Yeah. And just inside one of the sides of the loose leaf, I would literally flip over a piece of paper and put him so it was right where he's looking at Robin. So it's right here.
I see.
And we did that for a while. And then when we did the E channel, we had a little bin with a lipstick camera on the bin. and what I wrote and what Fred wrote came up on a computer screen. It was like the Jackie and Fred show. And then when we moved to the other studio, we were behind like kind of a wall. You know, I was kind of behind a wall.
Okay.
And so was Fred, and we had the same bin. And Howard had a video monitor here and a video monitor all over here. So if he's talking to a guest that came in or strippers or whatever, when I'm talking to them, I'm reading the notes that are on the screen. And then over here, when he's talking to a guest, there was and he I had the monitor there.
Yeah.
And people always wondered why he wore dark glasses. Whenever somebody came in, like a hot chick or a celebrity or something, he would put on a pair of dark glasses, like sunglasses that, you know, fit his persona. Like he was kind of, you know,
Johnny
dark,
cool.
even. But meanwhile, he's talking to you with his head, with his don't mind me.
You're doing great.
He's got the sunglasses. He's talking to you, but right next to the person is the monitor. Yeah. So he's looking at them, but his eyes are looking at.
He can read it at the same time.
I have no idea that he's reading.
Yeah.
And nobody knew that for so long. And to this day, so I'm sure there's plenty of people that would think I'm lying when I say that, which is so funny, you know.
That's incredible. I mean, so he's you know, it appears that he's looking right at the person, but he can turn his eyes because they can't see where his eyes are going. That's honestly pretty smart, you know, pretty clever.
It's very smart. And if you go to old shows, you'll notice, you probably never noticed it. All of a sudden you notice, God damn, he does put on the sunglasses every time. You know, it's another thing. And some people know this, you know, immediately. When Johnny Carson did his monologue, he would do, say, an 8-minute monologue. Nobody knew from anything. But if you know and you watch, all the cards for the monologue are in huge cards, not word for word, but what he needs to know. And like the first row of people in front of them, like almost like a bandstand, all the cards for the monologue are here. And if you know that, you can watch his eyes look from here to here to here to here. And you can almost tell where he is in the monologue from which way he's looking. And I probably sounds like crazy, but now those old cartoons, you noticed that before?
I've seen him do that. Yeah, for sure.
You know, and it's very interesting.
Turning.
Yeah. But he's, you know, he looks down here, he looks down here, which is, who cares, you know?
Yeah.
But it's interesting.
But that's some insider info that most people don't know, because it looks like he's just playing to the audience. You know what I mean? Like different parts, but he's turning, following the cards probably, right?
Absolutely. You know? And
you wouldn't know that.
I'll tell you too, that is the paper you're talking about, the jokes you have on paper, that is legit a piece of, like, it's almost like art history in a way. Because if you're a fan of the show, or were a fan of the show, and you're driving to work and you remember just losing your mind laughing at this joke, and you have that written down, like, come on, that's you know.
Well, they weren't jokes. Everything was like 2 words, 5 words, 8 words. They were either comments or a punchline, but they were usually huge laughs. And if somebody tells me the date, like somebody, I finally tested it. What's his name? David Carradine. Was on the show. Somebody said, Howard said something to David Carradine, and I know you wrote it. And I said, well, if you could tell me the date, I could find it. And the guy told me the date. I've never done this before. I went up my mother's attic. It's 15 years worth of things, but you know, you narrow it down, and I found the note. And I sent the guy back a scan of the note. And he just blew his mind. And it was not a great big joke, but it was fun, you know.
Yeah. But, you know,
so I got so much stuff. You know.
Oh, I can only imagine. Plus, too, you know, you've been writing jokes for a long time. So, like, even back in the day, like, you know, we have 516-922-WINE, which is still out there now. I've honestly, me and Justin been calling. I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. When
I stopped for the first 7 years. Me and my future ex-wife Nancy changed it every day. It really was my future ex-wife. I'm not kidding. We changed it every day, including weekends. for 7 years.
Yeah, dang.
And then we got a computer. It's a whole thing. The way the whole thing went down. It's its own story. I think it's in my autobiography, but
yeah.
it was amazing. And I just did it. And then I started putting jokes daily on Twitter.
Mhm.
And I just recently, like in the last week or so, quit that. And I'm putting a joke once a day on TikTok.com. And, it's so funny. Sometimes the jokes get 1,000 views and sometimes they get 40,000 views.
Yeah.
My world record, like one joke got like 650,000 views.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
But they got to be clean. So I'm doing
TikTok's
the same
the
thing.
worst.
I'm doing the same thing as we did on the Stern show. Instead of he doesn't want to get any shit on his cock, I'm saying he doesn't want to get any poop on his rocket, which is, and if you scan
so much
that,
funnier.
If the Chinese people scan that, they don't see a dirty joke. I mean, they don't see a dirty word.
Yeah.
I've had so many filthy jokes on there, but we got
an account warning that for us too.
Yeah, they don't delete it. They
block it,
silence it. They don't block it. They just had it mute it. I'm sorry, I'm a little slow with the words.
Right. Yeah.
And I got muted for the word masturbate, and I got muted for the word dildo. Yeah. And I'm like, this isn't going to last long. And that was it. And then the other day I did like 8 jokes, which I never do. I did 8 quick ones and I got muted. I'm like, which joke? They were all pretty dirty. So I complained. And then next thing I know, they put it through.
Yeah.
And now, that's up to like 12,000.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's weird though. It's TikTok.com/ but it's at Jackie Martling. So many people never find it because I don't know why they have that nomenclature. But once people get it, and it's fun. It's just stupid. Me and my stupid jokes,
Yeah. Well, we follow you. The show follows you. Actually, and everyone listening, in the description of this episode, we'll have a link to the TikTok, jokeland.com, everything that Jackie has. So if you want to get shows, tickets, or view anything, you can definitely do that. He's got a lot of great stuff out there. And it's really fun. Plus, too, if you're doing the TikTok format, I mean, you can translate it over to YouTube and to Instagram. Like they all have the short, like the minute clip videos now, it's the new big thing apparently. People's attention.
I can't keep up with it, but I'm sure I could be doing a lot more if I knew what the hell I was doing. And I got to correct you. I've written plenty of jokes, but relatively speaking, so few. I grew up as I became a musician, but I've been telling jokes since I was like in 3rd grade.
Yeah.
And they're just old jokes. Old jokes have become new again, become old again, become new again. And even dial-a-joke, everything, all my CDs, everything is old classic jokes with a few weird observations here and there.
Yeah.
And what's really funny is every single thing I wrote for Howard, there were no joke. He didn't like jokes. I think in the whole 15 or 18 years on the show, I probably told 3 jokes or 5 jokes. And then him and Robin would pretend they wouldn't get it. And I get so much mail from people saying that was the funniest fucking thing I ever heard. It's the same old thing.
Yeah.
But I'm not a joke writer. I'm a collector and a distributor, and I just know how to tell them better than anybody else. So
I agree. And you did I guess kind of your start for, like you said, you did do music and you were in some, I mean, I love the names of some of your bands. It was like Pillowcase, Pillow with a Y, the Sonics, the Off Hour Rockers, all of those. But when you transitioned into comedy, it kind of started like Dangerfield. Writing jokes for Dangerfield was kind of maybe more of the tipping point to get you out of doing music. Is that right? Because
because that actually happened very early on. The way things happen is so weird. I had a band in college.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I had a band in high school, then I had a band in college called the Off Hour Rockers, and then during the school, and then college, it was the Sonics, and then it was the Pillowcase.
Yeah.
And then in summers we had Tonight's Episode with a Y, the same crap. But then when we had the show in the 70s, we used Off Hour Rockers again. And that's what I did up until the time I quit. But I found out about the Catch a Rising Star and Dangerfields, and just on a whim, just sent him jokes that had nothing to do. I wasn't hard. I was just piddling with comedy. I just, all of us were brand new.
Yeah.
And then we started working at this one place, and it was like me and Richie Minervini and Bob Nelson and Eddie Murphy and Rob Bartlett.
Yeah.
all of a sudden that little gang. But this thing with Rodney was a year before that or something. You know,
Yeah.
it was just such an anomaly.
Yeah.
But it was just the whole thing is just the way things fall in line with each other. But that's how it is for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, I'm listening to Don Felder's autobiography from the Eagles.
Oh.
And
Cool.
all I'd have to do is change the names. It's the same story, you know, trying to get up the money and working little jobs and getting enough to get a guitar and then getting enough to get an amp and getting another friend so you can have a band in high school, you know. And it's like, I don't know if he's dead or alive. I got to write to him and said, I would tell you that that's my story, but I'm sure it's the story of every kid that ever bought a guitar and wound up in a band. You know, it's just how it works. You know, you want to be a writer, you want to be a painter, I guess you buy, you know, some paints, you know, like fuck that, you know.
Yeah, you want to be a shit shoveler, you got to get a shovel. This is how it works.
You can't get laid drawing pictures. It takes too much time. You know?
Yeah, that's the truth, man. No, you are right in what you're saying, but you came up, but with Dangerfield though, I mean, like, do you still get a high? Like when, like, I know you're sober, you know, 22 years sober, but do you still get like that feeling when a joke hits and you get people laughing? Like, is that not still one of the best feelings ever? Like, do you still get that?
That's the heroine of the business. That never goes away.
Yeah.
Just like if you have, you know, if you're only as good as the last joke, you can be killing, and all of a sudden, boom. You know, I always told jokes. And when I first started, the people in the city were like, oh, that guy from Long Island that tells old jokes. And they kind of thought that I picked up a joke book and opened it up and chose some jokes. And the truth is, I've been telling the jokes my entire life, and they're tested and well worn and whittled down. And when I started having people ask me to tell me a joke I haven't heard, starting in like 1975, they very, very rarely did it.
Yeah.
And I finally said, listen, you guys, you think I'm just up there putzing?
Yeah.
Take a couple joke books, choose a bunch of jokes, and go on stage and tell them. I dare you. Because you tell a joke and nobody laughs. You tell another joke and nobody laughs. It gets so fucking lonely so fast. You got to know, you know, people say, oh, he tells old jokes. The people that do Hamlet, they didn't write that. Some people do it amazingly, and some people are an embarrassment. But it's the same shit, you know.
Yeah.
It's like it's really funny. It's really, you know, I never get sick of defending it. I never get sick of defending it. You know, it's fun.
It's great. I mean, you know, people don't realize that. Yeah, you can, you know, reading words on a page is one thing, but you've got the delivery, you've got the timing. All of that takes years and years of practice.
And you got to know what ones are going to work.
Yeah.
You know, it's, you know, I'm not trying to make it more than it is, but I don't want it to be less than it is either, you know.
Yeah. Look, it's one of the toughest art forms, but like Norm tells great jokes that and you don't have that anymore. The Hedberg would go on stage and tell you 1,000 jokes.
I hate the expression jokes.
You know what I mean?
Street. No, I'm not blaming it. Street jokes. Jokes. Like the other day, I did a joke, and I looked like a young girl's picture, and she wrote, you know, people put comments like dad jokes. I'm like, yeah, fucking dad jokes. I told them to you. I told them to your father. I told them your father's father, you stupid broad. You know, get a fucking life, you know. And then I just block people. People take a shot at me, I block them. And then when they go back looking for another joke, like, fuck you.
Yeah. They couldn't take the criticism anyway.
Yeah, where's the joke I can criticize, you know?
Yeah.
Which is just so childish, but childish is everything, you know.
True. Very true.
It's
but
part of the internet.
Yeah. Oh yeah. When you get to shit on someone, I mean, when you like hit a slam dunk on someone, especially if it's like a troll job, you're like, all right, this is okay. But when it happens to you, you're like, motherfucker. You know what I mean? The stories of stuff that happened in clubs and the heckler stuff. So many of the stories. Next book's got to be full of those, you know, because they're just so much fun. You know, so much fun. Yeah. And we brought up your book a couple times. And like I said, in the description of this episode, we'll definitely have a link for that. And I did it twice. And it was honestly, it was great. I love to, like, when you're telling, like, and I know I've said it, when you're telling stories about Dangerfield and hanging out with him, like, that's crazy. You know, like he must, like, talk about an all-time iconic guy. And you're, you know, like, he liked to party too. You know what I mean?
You
like,
know, and he wasn't funny. You know, he's the greatest stand-up comedian in the world, but he wasn't a funny guy per se. But he was a joy to be with.
yeah.
But like, it was so fun. This is probably in my book, but we were in Fort Lauderdale. I wasn't there. He wasn't working. We were in Fort Lauderdale for a week with his daughter and her friend and his son Brian. And sometimes it's the oldest joke in the book, but I know them all. So the right joke plays right here. So me and Rodney will walk along the beach, and one of these muscle-bound morons is on the beach, and he's doing push-ups. And I said, Rodney, look, that guy lost his partner. And he says, you really are fucking funny, aren't you? You really, I'm like, the oldest fucking line I ever heard in my, yes, buddy, I am very funny.
Yeah. Thanks for you to notice. Very nice.
I just love the guy. I love the guy.
No, he was,
so goofy.
Yeah. And you did, I mean, and you were responsible. Like, what about that feeling too? When you did Tennessee Two Bagger and you hear him say that, and then it becomes like a big thing. Right? Like, how crazy, that must have been one of the craziest feelings ever.
And that was so haphazard.
Yeah.
I had a friend who was selling coke and doing coke in Peru. And he called me up and said, Chief, you got to hear this joke. Wake up. He knew I was awake. It was like, wasn't awake. It was like 4 a.m.
Yeah.
He kept me on the phone long enough. And he said, I ran into this crazy guy. This guy, JR, is the greatest. He's dead now. But he's like, this guy, Tennessee Bob, is unbelievable. He does this joke about the Tennessee Two Bagger. She's so ugly that if you need 2 bags. So if the bag over her head breaks, you still got a bag on your head. I forget exactly. And I fucking fell down. And I gave my friend a bunch of jokes to give to Rodney. And that was one of them.
Yeah.
And I was living at my grandmother's house after she passed away, me and my girlfriend. Nobody has the number. All her friends are dead. Nobody calls the house. But of course, when I sent the jokes, I had already typed them up. My friend said, no, I don't know him. I didn't meet him. I said, well, you cocksucker, at least hand these to him.
Yeah.
And he said, I don't know him. So I just wrote Rodney's address and put the jokes in the mail. And 2 days later, the phone rings at my grandmother's. Nobody has the fucking number. And we're sitting having lunch. I said, hello. I said, Lois, listen, hello. Who is this? He says, it's Rodney. And I said, Rodney who? And he said, I knew you were fucking funny. I knew that right away. You were fucking funny. And Lois goes, who is it? It's fucking Rodney Dangerfield on the phone. I sent him to, oh, who is it? Richie? No, it's fucking Rodney. And we went to the Westbury Music Fair and walked in there, and she's beautiful. And I got a ponytail and ragged blue jeans. Yeah. Oh, some funny shit here. Wow, she's beautiful. You want a piece of fruit? Oh, she's a very nice girl. Hey, what's with the fucking hair? Jesus Christ, and the blue jeans. Jesus, she's beautiful. You want a piece of fruit? Just wired to the fucking, oh my God. It's like he died one. And then we went and watched the show, and we did the 2 bagger. The place went fucking batshit. And like, I mean, I didn't write it, but it's the right joke at the right time. There's so much of Rodney's act and other people's, like the jokes, they've all come from somewhere. Nobody believes that,
Yeah.
Like, and it's so fun throwing this around. I love to discuss it with people because we're all fascinated by the whole thing, Yeah, not everybody, just some of us, but the people that discuss it,
I am fascinated by it. And people don't realize what you're saying is that you think these comedians think of all this shit themselves? Absolutely not.
Well, a lot of them really do. The guys that do the first person stuff.
Yeah.
But anything that's a setup and a punchline, no matter how it winds itself in, because I always tell people, if you think you can come up with a joke that about shitting, pissing, fucking, vomiting, picking your nose, that somebody hasn't come up with since Adam and Eve in all those years in the world, you're out of your mind. There were dirty joke books in 1200, and some of the jokes that were about Cleopatra were now about Madonna, and now about Kim Cat, whatever fucking faces,
Kardashian.
And it's very interesting. It's very fun.
No, yeah, that's another idea for a book, The History of Jokes, right? But
we're working on that too, because it's a guy, Rich Scheidner, is doing a one-man show about the history of stand-up comedy.
Oh, really?
But jokes per se is a whole different ball game, And I get such a kick out of them, because they all come in so many shapes and sizes and different somebody was asked me the other day, this guy that was one of the editors of The Aristocrat,
Uh-huh.
he said, I think I wrote a joke. And he told me the joke. And I said, that joke has been around forever. But if you take the punchline, what joke is it? If it's one of those punchlines, it's like a familiar saying.
Yeah.
You just write backwards and come up with a story that's going to get you there. And the same joke, and the punchline is you should have quit when you were ahead. And there are 100,000 versions of that. I said, yeah, Emery, you certainly wrote that. And so did everybody else that wrote that,
Yeah.
which
yeah.
just curious, like there's nothing funnier than the jokes about the word nevertheless. But what sucks about that is it's referred to by the punchline, which is, hey, do you know that joke about to get to the other side? Game over. You know what I mean? So, but the nevertheless thing, you Google that. It is just fucking fascinating.
Hey.
Fascinating. Yeah. And I bombed so bad at the guy with the fucking hair, Don King.
Oh, Don King.
Don King roast, like 3,000 people. The guy who introduced me was Trump. And like an idiot, I told some longer jokes, which the people just have no attention span.
Yeah.
And then the punchline, I had to be off mic because I was too stupid. So I'm kind of off mic, so nobody heard it. But while I was saying the most filthy thing you could say, I was 5 feet away from Dionne Warwick.
Oh, no.
I'm looking at Dionne Warwick and saying, Kate Smith, that fat cunt, she sucked every cock on the East Coast. and I'm like, I'm Dionne. I love Dionne. Like I grew up with Dionne. So fun. Not Dionne the Belmont. Dionne, don't make me over. That's before your time.
No, I know what you're talking about.
We know it. We know it.
Yeah.
So funny. So fucking funny.
That is great. And then, but jokes would become like, that's your shtick. You're the joke man, right? And that would be like part of your act. And like you told the great story about in Montreal where you go up on stage, right? And you're doing your thing. And then you let the audience come to you with jokes. And it like you're saying, to see if they can stump you. And
that was a staple of my act. Not so much lately, but that was a staple of my act for 10 years, 12 years. Like I had shirts of every different color that said, I stumped Jackie the Joke Man. And at the end of my act, the guys would raise their hands and the women would come up on stage. And I get like 8, 5, 10, 20 girls up on stage all at once.
Yeah.
Do all the guys and do the girls. And it was so lewd. I was like, I would be in jail, pushing the girl's head down between my legs and putting my nose between their boobs. But they all knew me. They all knew why we were there. It wasn't like I went out and did it on the street. And I always knew the joke. But if I didn't know the jokes, it was even a bigger smash because the people would go berserk. It was a no-lose proposition, and people just fucking loved it. And those days were so, so great. I hosted the Rascals Comedy Hour for 2 years. And the deal I made with them, they paid me terribly. But I said, I'm just introducing the acts. Hello, this is Jackie. I do like a 10-minute monologue and then bring on 3 comedians one at a time. But the deal I made with them was when the show was over being taped, they kept the cameras going for a half hour. And so I'd get to play Stump the Joke Man for a half hour. And I got endless footage of Stump the Joke Man with, and it's, nice. Yeah, but it's so lewd. Like you said, they'd come and lock me up.
Yeah. Oh,
it was so funny, so funny.
Yeah, but you would have been canceled 20 times over by now.
So I interrupted you, but what happened was I was doing my act, which was a very abbreviated 20 minutes, and then played Stump the Joke Man. I had 10 girls on stage. I swear, from central casting. A short girl, a fat girl, a Jewish girl, a Chinese guy. It was almost like I had handpicked them. And I went up and down, who are you? What do you do? Insulting them, all in fun. And then when I was done with the guys, I just held the microphone and the girl would say, set up. And I'd say the end. So the girl set up, and the last girl out of either 8 or 10 was a Chinese girl. And here I've been attacking women and attacking everybody for so long. Yeah. And she did the setup in pidgin English, like you could barely understand what she was saying.
Yeah.
And I didn't fucking know the answer. Oh. And I started pacing up and down on the stage like a tiger. And it was just like a midnight show at Club Soda at the Montreal Fest. And I mean, you could have cut the tension with a knife. It was beautiful. And I didn't know the answer. And then she said the answer in pidgin English. She could just barely understand I mean, the fucking place, went batshit. I've had crowds go wild. She said, what is difference? No. How are toilet seat, anniversary, and clitoris the same? And I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, Jesus Christ.
And the place is on edge. They're like, oh, yeah.
Tinderhooks. And I said, I give up. And she said, men miss them all. By God, the roof came off. It was fucking insane. I gave them all shirts. I said, thank you. Nick DiPaolo came up and said, good night, everybody. And when he left the stage, they were still laughing and cheering. And I came off,
I bet.
and a guy from who are the two guys that produced Letterman and Woody Allen, Rollins and Jaffe.
Okay.
And Charles Jaffe was there in the audience, in the back. And I came off, and he came up to me and said, and he was 1,000 years old. I don't know. This is 1993. Mm-hmm. I didn't know him, but he said, Jackie, that is maybe the most spectacular thing I've ever seen. That was unbelievable. Mm-hmm. But how often do the girls come up on stage? I said, Charles, I'm not lying to you. Every show they come up, every show they're that varied. Sometimes they get me, sometimes they don't. But it is a surefire kill every time. He said, I just can't believe it. And I thought, well, I'm made.
Yeah.
Well, the phone didn't ring the next day or the next week or the next year. And Charles Jaffe went back to fucking his secretary, and that was the end of it for me.
Jesus.
But it was just and I think they used to tape all of those shows. They were classic midnight. It was called The Nasty Show.
Yeah.
So maybe that exists on tape somewhere, but it was spectacular.
I mean, you like the first night you were there, you didn't headline, but your show was so big that everyone's like, we're not following this fucking guy. And they were like, they had to put you as the last one.
You're making more of it than it was, but it was Roger Rittenhouse. It was Nick DiPaolo was the host, then a really funny guy with one hand and a prosthesis named Roger Rittenhouse, and me and Bob Schimmel. And after the first night, he said, but he's low key, very funny and brutally wonderful.
Yeah.
But I'm a loudmouth, loud, and I didn't do Stump the Joke Man to try and make trouble. They made it part of the deal that I had to do that.
Yeah.
And he said, I ain't fucking following Jackie doing that shit. So the next night I closed the show, but not because I asked to. Yeah. And me and Schimmel were always great friends,
No, you didn't ask to, but they needed you because it was too much energy. They were they hit such a high with you.
It's high energy anyway, but that night was just ridiculous. You couldn't have scripted it, And I'd never heard that joke before. Now there's a really, really spectacularly funny, smart, terrific anti-man joke.
Yeah.
And those adjectives don't always find themselves in the same sentence,
Yeah. And the delivery too must have been like, oh, incredible. Yeah. I mean, would you say that's one of your like most memorable nights ever on stage? That was
the second most memorable. The first memorable is when the girl followed me home and sucked my cock.
I mean, I understand why.
That did not happen.
I mean, not happen.
The blowjob happened, but the joke didn't happen.
So
I don't know what I'm talking about.
No, you're hey, come on. So all right,
Janet, pay no attention.
I've been playing Candy Crush.
Yeah, sure. So either way, so people don't realize this too. Back in the day, right? Like, I mean, now with the social media aspect,
everybody says back in the day. What fucking day is that we're talking about? What
1997.
Back in the day. Back in the day.
I guess this
Theodore
would be
Roosevelt, George Washington. Whose day?
I think it would be back in the Tuesday. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That would be exact. That's exact.
Yeah. So you had to really be a hustler back then, and you were putting out your own albums and like betting on yourself and placing this money and all that stuff. So you would have to like find the place you would record it, and you did it live, right? Like you were one of the first ones to do like the live recording. You piece it together, and then you would have to send it to get it published and then distribute it, right? Like
that was forget the Stern Show and all that. That was the really ballsy thing. Like I worked at a recording studio, and a long story, but the guy who started the recording studio played in a band in the same bars that we played. And the owner of the bar decided he wanted to make a record out of the song called the Pot Song that Howard used to play all the time. And so we made it. And then they came to one of my gigs and they saw that I had a microphone on the foot tambourine. And they said, whoa, you know what you're doing here. So I went to work for them for peanuts. But after a couple of years, I knew what you needed to do to make a record. You find out that any moron, you don't need Sony records. You need a tape and a picture and a few dollars, and you send it, and it's like making a cake, and you come out with an album. So we started comedy in this little restaurant upstairs at a place called Cinnamon. And Richie would host the shows and I would close the shows with my loudmouth act with my guitar. The whole first year I was in comedy, I closed every show and I always played my guitar for the whole show. And I hung two microphones and put the microphones into one side of a cassette recorder and me into the other side of the cassette recorder and took it home and transferred it to reel and chopped it up with a razor blade. And when I had two sides, I said, okay, that's that. And I borrowed $100 from everybody I knew. I had $1,500. I had my class picture where I'm giving the finger. And I took a couple pictures and I sent it to Nashville. And I'll tell you, when I went to Port Authority to pick up those albums, you would have thought I was going to the hospital to pick up triplets. It was like, holy fucking God. And I did that 3 times. And by 1982, I had 3 records. I wasn't Bill Cosby. I didn't have records for Casablanca or for CBS. They're homemade things with real pictures and real tape. But they were, and then they told me to look up this guy, Howard Stern, who just got fired from Washington, and he's going to NBC. I just like I sent the jokes to Rodney, I sent the 3 albums to Howard Stern. I didn't know who the fuck he was, never heard of him. I'm a hippie. I listened to the Eagles in my car. I didn't listen to radio. But here's 3 records that looked pretty good. They were totally homemade, but here's a guy with 3 records and he's coming to New York. It had to be in some way the least bit impressive or something, or worth giving me a shot. But I can't imagine how much shit came to NBC. What if he had just tossed that to the side? Like you'll never know, And and he called me up and said, "You want to come in today and host what do you call it? A talent contest we're doing over the telephone." And it sounded fun. I went in there and he said, "You were fun. Come back next week." And then that was the beginning of 18 years of, just craziness. But it's so random. There's an old story about Hillary Clinton, and somebody's interviewing her and they said, "You've done pretty good for yourself and you're doing very well. But come on, you're married to the president of the United States, What would have happened if you had married a gas station attendant?" And you know what she said? She said, "Then he'd be president." What a line. What a line. And that's the same thing. They say, "Yeah, you're so lucky you ran to Howard." First of all, it wasn't luck. It was perseverance to even get to where I had the records. But if I hadn't have bumped into him, I wouldn't have said, well, nobody responded. Nobody responded to 400 sets of the crap that we sent out. We would have just kept going till, one of the stones went into the round peg, Or else maybe I'd be broke. Maybe it wouldn't have taken me this long to get broke.
Do you ever think because you say it in the book.
No, I never was going to be a gigolo. I was never,
after you retired, of course. But but Eddie Murphy had asked you to help him produce a record, right? Well, he didn't. You make it sound like we had some kind of, sit down. What was happening? I was at the East Side Comedy Club and I was recording. I was set up to record my second record, and everybody knew about my first record because it was a big deal. Out of all us guys, I went away with Rodney and I had an album. I got Rodney to buy one of my albums, and I kept the check for $5 from Rodney Dangerfield. It's still sitting around somewhere. And Eddie just, he saw the microphones hanging there, and he said, "Jack, you have an album. I want to have an album." I said, "I'm sorry, Eddie, I'm too busy." not being a dick. I really, Yeah. Hey, man, it's not like you're, it's not like you're not lying. You were just busy. When you said the Cinnamon Club, was that the one owned by Jerry Cooney's brother?
Jerry Cooney's brother, Michael. And Cooney always came in and punched us in the balls with his big hands. Oh, we had so much fun. And that grew into a place called the East Side Comedy Club, which was the first full-time comedy club on Long Island. And it just, the whole thing just fell, where we met was a place called Richard M. Dixon's White House Inn. And this guy, Richard M. Dixon, had his face surgically changed to look like Nixon. And that is the absolute gospel. You can look it up.
Wow.
And he was a good guy. He was all right, but he wouldn't pay us, so we said, all right, we got to, and we found a place. Richie found a place. He said, listen, can we get up and do comedy, and we'll take what's at the door. And if enough people come in, you'll make a lot of money with the drinks. And that show kept going for like 15 years.
Golly.
It was, when I produced shows on Long Island with my amplifier and my guitar and a microphone, and I had a show in every place on Long Island. You wouldn't believe it. But the guys from the city, they all loved me because there was no place to work. Yeah. And they came work for me. They made $40 or $50. That was like a home run, as opposed to going to the comic strip and getting $5 and maybe a hamburger. Yeah. And get stoned and get drunk and get laid and have a wonderful time.
Yeah, it was worth it for sure. Okay, so real quick, Jackie, we have a segment right now that we want to get into. It's the J-Dubs question segment. Justin's going to ask you a few questions. And, if you want to answer, go ahead. If not, you can spit in his eye. Either way.
8 inches.
Soft or hard?
Yes.
Excellent.
No, it's 8 inches, but I got to tell you the truth. That's a little too wide for most women.
It's like a Heineken can.
Yeah, damn, that was good. All right, Justin, go ahead.
Well, with that, when's the last time your mom saw your dick?
She died in 1998, but I think the last time she saw my dick was when I ran around the neighborhood naked when I was 3. So it would have been after that. I would say when I was 6 or 7. It wasn't a big
reasonable. Deal. You didn't get caught beating it at all as a child.
You just kept tripping over it, and she was like, "Hey, you got to tuck this thing." Yeah.
It's funny. My family was crazy. And
same.
My mother was Dorothy Parker.
My mother's name is Dorothy.
Really, if you got something nasty to say, sit here. And I know when I was this drove Howard fucking nuts, because when I was a little kid, sometimes when you're a little kid, your zipper's down. Mm-hmm. And when I was like 5 years old, 7 years old, if my zip was down, my mother would point and go, "It's ever ready, Eddie." which just Howard could not believe that, because I tell him about my mother, like, when you're a kid, sometimes you misplace something, like, where are my shoes? Ma, where are my shoes? Or Ma, where's my baseball glove? I say, Ma, where's my baseball glove? And she got me with this probably 5 times, which is, catching your little kid and tripping him up, Yeah. But I'd say, "Where's my baseball glove?" And she'd say, Helen Hunt? And I'd say, "No, we'll go to Helen Hunt for it." Which was, and every time I'd be like, "Fuck, she got me again." And this is
that's fucking great.
Long before the days of Helen Hunt. Helen Hunt. And to this day, I'm sure it was an old thing. But she could have made that. My mother was real smart, ridiculously smart, and just wonderful. She was working at Grumman, helping build the planes for the Second World War, and just a character. And everybody, I had so many people. My house was a center of action in my hometown, and all my friends, and then it was all my brother's friends, and then it was all my sister's friends, and it was all my brother Jimmy's friends, and it's hard to believe what it was like. And it's, if you went through any of that, you're like, "Oh, no wonder Jackie wound up the asshole that he is."
I miss those days. My house was like a hotel when I was a kid, and I kind of, like, honestly, like, I remember talking to my brother, and I said it on the show before, but even as a kid, like an 8-year-old kid, I could wake up at 2 a.m, someone was up. You know what I mean? Or someone was there. There's always something going on. There's always action. There's always, bullshit everybody's getting into. Truthfully, I miss it, but sometimes I'm like, I want some fucking peace and quiet too. You know what I mean? So,
you wonder, so many things, so many pebbles in the stream can change everything. I didn't have great grades in high school, but I was on the drama club, and I was a gymnast, and I was on the track team. And I was in the chorus play. So I was a rounded guy, and I applied to Michigan State, which is a state school. So they didn't take many people, but I'm sure they saw that I did all this other crap, and I was accepted. Now, Michigan State was huge. Yeah. And they had these different complexes of the Wilson Wonders complex and this complex. And they put me in a tiny old dormitory, Snyder Phillips, that was boys on one side, girls on the other side. And the dormitory housed a liberal arts college within the university, the Justin Morrill College. And I wasn't even in Justin Morrill, but most of the people in the dormitory were.
Okay.
And they were all hippies and crazy and creative and wonderful. And the rest of the place was mishmash, middle of the road, Midwest people. If I'd have been in any of those other dorms, I don't know what this place, Snyder Hall, was spectacular. We had our band and we started smoking pot and sneaking women in and everything. It was just the most wonderful. I still dream about, being there. It was just, and that was just the luck of the draw that I wound up there. And little thing, but something like that can completely, if I didn't get accepted to Michigan State, God knows where I would have wound up. Every little thing changes everything,
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. Yeah. What,
sure.
like you're saying, you're being in a house full of people having fun, going to Michigan State, one little, turn of the road, but it does take perseverance too. Like, I don't want people to think like, everything happened to you, you're the luckiest guy ever. You're a hard worker and you hustle. You know what I mean?
No, there's no luck. The luck you get is determined by how hard you work. People are like, oh, you're lucky you sent Howard your albums and you got a job. I said, well, I didn't get a job. For the first 3 years, I worked for absolutely nothing, worked for free. And that was one of 400 sets of 3 albums that me and Nancy sent out. Yep. We didn't have the money for albums or for the postage or for anything. And we just kept at it and throwing shit against the wall.
Yep.
And I started the Dial Joke to promote that first show we had at that Jerry Cooney's brother's place. And everything. If you connect the dots backwards, it's just like a maze. If you connect the dots backwards, it's an easy trail. Yeah. But on the way there, you're bang into this wall, bang into that wall, But it's interesting,
Yeah, but it's all part of the experience. And that's what builds character. Justin, go ahead. What's your next question?
Did you get arrested as a minor?
Question?
Yeah. Did you get arrested as a minor?
What do you mean as a minor?
Under 17,
age of 18.
Or under 18, yeah.
Yeah, I spent the night in jail 6 times, but I think one of them was it was funny. I got a speeding ticket on Staten Island, and I talked my buddy into coming with me because I had to appear in court. And I stood up in court, and the guy said, "I think I had $20 with me. What do I know?" And he says, "That'll be $50." I'm like, I don't have $50. Oh, sorry, son. And they grabbed me. And I said, Paul, go get some money. Funny enough, Paul is the guy whose family lived in the place where I got my knee.
Oh, you hurt your knee? Okay.
But Paul de Guzman, great guy. So he takes off from Manhattan because his parents lived in Manhattan to get the money but he didn't get back in time. So I got loaded into the paddy wagon, whatever they call it. And they took us to the Brooklyn House of Detention. And I got my pillow and my blanket and I got
bologna sandwich.
It was beyond absolutely frightening because you're in the paddy wagon with crooks. It's like the old Arlo Guthrie. And people saying, "What'd you do?" I cut my wife. What'd you do? I steal cars. What do you do? And I got to me and I said, I went too fast. And they laughed, There's a paddy wagon with one window that's like 3x3, and there's fucking bars in that little window. It's just, you couldn't believe. One guy got in, sat down, took out a bobby pin, took off his handcuffs, relaxed. And when we got to where we were going, he put his handcuffs back on. I'm like, you can't make this shit up.
Wow.
But I didn't spend the night that time because he got back. They told him where I was, and then he went to Brooklyn House of Detention. Oh. So like at 10 o'clock at night, I got bailed out. I was a great friend. I was there for a week. That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
A week, Yeah. And then you start getting a little crazy. I went to jail in Rye, New York for DWI, and I went to jail.
How old were you? Were you under? Yeah, I guess it was 18 at the time.
No, I was. What would I have been? Probably like 32. Rascals Comedy Hour. It was their 5th anniversary, so I think it was like 1985. So I was pretty well along. Right. And we all got so drunk at the 5th anniversary, and then I had a gig the next day, and I said, "Come on, shots for the band, shots for the band." The waitresses brought up shots, and everybody in the show was Jewish. The Jews don't drink, so I drank all the shots like a moron. And I'm on my way back. And I had a gig in Connecticut.
Yeah.
So at Brad Axelrod's the Treehouse Comedy Club. So I had a morning radio show to do to promote the club. And my wife my future ex-wife had to come up from Long Island and bail me out.
Oh.
And she was so pissed off.
Oh, yeah.
And, I had slept for a few minutes. What happened was I got off the whatever road it is, because a lot of times you get off the road and then you get back up on. So I got off the road, took a leak, and thought I'd just get right back on. But it was one of those exits that wasn't an off and on. It was get off, and then you got to know where you are. And so I was driving down the streets of Rye, New York, with the middle line in the middle of the car so I wouldn't hit anything. And the cop was like, Jesus Christ, come on, let's go. So my wife comes to bail me out and takes me to the radio station where I have to do this interview. I'm hungover, I am a mess, and the DJ was a ventriloquist. He was a Spanish ventriloquist who had a fucking parrot named Jose. So I got interviewed by this moron with a dummy. I was so fucking, and I'm laughing my ass off. And Nancy was ready to kill me.
Yeah.
And then we had a great show and blah, blah, blah. And then I was in Virginia Beach, and all the waitresses took me out. And I said, well, I'll show these kids, Yeah. And so they're all ordering Long Island iced tea. And I'm like, hey, where I come from, I'm from Long Island. We don't call it Long Island iced tea. On Long Island, it's just fucking iced tea.
Yeah.
And I must have drank 3 or 4 of them. And I fell asleep at a stoplight.
Oh.
I woke up to the banging on the
dang.
window, and there's a black female cop with her nightstick banging on the window, and I'm passed out at the light. And so I went to jail, and then and the owner of the club was half mobbed up. And I said, listen, you cannot, I got a DWI a month ago. My wife will divorce me. You got to get me out of this. And somehow under the table, I sent him money every once in a while, and he got me out of it, which was just fantastic. And another time you know what? That was before I was 18. I was working at a country club, and I was home from college. I was the head busboy of a pipe and rock club on Long Island for my entire high school time. And the story is just about that. It's like the most blue blood place in the world. Like the Kennedys couldn't get in, because they were Catholic. Yeah. And so I'm the head busboy, and at some point somebody took me up in the attic, and I saw this great map. It was one of these maps, like a big hand-drawn map of Long Island, only with all the interesting places that things happen, like written. It was like a work of art. And I said, I got to get this thing. And what? I didn't. That's the wrong story. I didn't get caught for that. But I was. That's.
What did you steal the? Did you steal it?
I had a getaway car. It's downtime between the afternoon and night. And I went up in the attic and lowered the painting out the window and lowered it down onto the ground. Then came in my car and put it in my car and stole the fucking thing. This is the same club though. It's my parents' anniversary. They're married on July 4th, which is funny because that's when the fireworks started.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have any money. I'm a poor college kid. I got no money. And they used to have these huge debutante balls, which I'm sure they still do. Yeah. And they'd have like 500 folding chairs. And they were these nice wooden folding chairs that were gold with red velvet seats. They were beautiful. And they had just gotten a shipment. And each big box had like 4 chairs in it. So I did the same thing. It was in between the acts. I put it out the back side. I backed in. I put them. I had a 1961 Chrysler Imperial, which had a trunk that you could literally play soccer in. I mean, it was immense. Yeah. So I put this huge box in there. And then that night we all went out, and I also stole this monstrous roll of aluminum foil because I needed a piece about this big to make a pipe to hold the hash. And we all went out and got crazy. And we came back and parked at the bowling alley bar, and we were all dead drunk. And we got a piece of aluminum foil, and I had a huge hunk of hash, and I was selling a little piece of it here and there, so I could get drunk each night. That's just how things operated in 1967 or whatever.
Yeah. And
a cop pulled into the parking lot.
Oh.
There's a big bowling alley parking lot. He pulls in and he said, what are you guys doing? We're just hanging out. Yeah. There's nobody there. There's just us. There's beer cans. And he goes, what the hell's going on here? And he sees this monstrous roll of aluminum foil. I don't even know where his head might have gone with that. And he's just curious. And he says, open the trunk. Now, I've got a bag in my pocket with not a huge hunk of hash, but it's in a plastic bag in my pocket.
Yeah.
I opened, I swear to God, I could see this. I opened the trunk, and it's a big cardboard, 3x3x4, whatever. And in huge letters, it says 2, Piping Rock Club, Locust Valley, New York. And he said, where'd you get that? I said, they gave it to me. He says, try again. I was bringing it to them from the post office. Whatever 2 excuses. And the cop said, one more try. I said, I stole them. And he said, bingo. And he calls backup. Backup's on its way. And my guys are freaking out, but they're not guilty of anything. I'm so worried I'm going to get busted. I swear, you don't have to believe a word I say, but I never lie. I had this plastic bag with this big chunk of hash in it. Yeah. And I tried to swallow it.
Oh.
And there were so many stories about people choking to death from trying to do shit like that.
Yeah.
And it didn't go down. I went, like a Heimlich maneuver. Yeah. And the thing came out. To me, when I hacked, it resounded, but the cop didn't hear a fucking thing.
Oh.
And I've got this bag with the hash in it that doesn't hardly weigh anything. And I tossed it as far as I could, but it only went so many feet.
Yeah.
And in the bowling alley parking lot with the lights looking over it, it looked like a diamond shining, right?
Yeah.
The fucking backup cop pulls into the parking lot and pulls the car over the bag of hash.
Oh,
I swear on my mother.
My
and
God.
I was like, holy shit. So they take me to Mineola. And, of course, when you're drunk, you go to jail and you wake up in jail. You start trying to figure out how you got there.
Yeah.
And they take me in front of the judge, and my old man's there, and he's ready to kill somebody. The car's at the bowling alley parking lot, and he only has the town car. He's not supposed to drive it. And the 6'6" general manager of Piping Rock is there. And I'm shaking like a leaf. And the judge says, Sergeant, check that guy's arms. And I looked at my father. I said, Judge, I'm hungover. I'm not a fucking junk, whatever. I said, I'm not a drug addict. And Mr. Ross, who was such a good guy, said, Your Honor, well, we don't want to press charges. We just hope that Jackie gets his stuff together. That's all. And the case dismissed. And my father was so pissed. I mean, all the way from Mineola to Long Island, which is probably 35, 40 minutes. He was so pissed. And we're supposed to go that day to the Newport Folk Festival, me and 3 or 4 other friends, and I was driving. So we got this Fiesta Grande planned, and I'm coming from jail. And the whole way he's telling me, you're not going anywhere, you're never doing anything again, blah, blah, and he's going on and on and on. It always sounds like I'm making it up. And he drives, we drive down to the bowling alley parking lot, and I look, and there's the fucking hash in the bag. And I got in the car and pretended it didn't start. I said, Pop, this happens sometimes. I'll be home in 5 minutes. So he takes off. I get the fucking hash, start the car. I go home and I walk into my house, which is Action Central. And there's my buddy sitting there saying, what the fuck are you doing? We got to get on the road. We're going to be late. He's not going anywhere. My friend's like, what do you mean he's not going anywhere? He's driving. He's got to go. And the peer pressure was engulfing.
Yeah.
I would say from the time I walked in the door and yelled and argued with my father and my friends harassing him, it was all of a half an hour before we were in my car smoking the fucking hash. I swear to you. I swear on my mother.
On the way to the festival. That's great. Justin, you got one more question?
All right. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Jail. Dude, no, that was a great story. Don't be sorry. You kidding? Go ahead, Justin.
I don't think I've written up any of those.
They aren't.
It sounds like such bullshit.
And really that sounds great.
Perfect.
I got arrested one time when I was 16, and the cops call your parents. I was like, no. And he took me back to the precinct. I'm downstairs and locked up. They process the paper. He comes down. He goes, call your parent. I'm like, no. And he's like, you're a minor. Somebody has to come collect you. So I call my stepfather. He comes, picks me up, freaks the fuck out. Fast forward, same police station, same cop. I get arrested when I'm 18. He locks me up downstairs. He goes, call somebody to come pick you up. I go, and I'm still living with my parents this time. I'm like, no. And he's like, dude, call somebody so you can get the fuck out. I'm like, no, you have to release me within 24 hours. And I just fucking stayed there. I was like, no, I'm not. I'd rather sleep here than deal with that fucking man.
Because your parents are just going to say, throw away the key. Like in the old days, if you got in trouble, it was your fault. It wasn't the principal's fault.
Yeah.
The other one other 18. Time. Oh yeah.
I got arrested at 18, and they were like, call someone. So I had them call my older, cooler cousin.
Yeah.
And they called, And later on, I found out that when they called, my cousin picked up and they were like, "Hi, this is a whatever police. We have Jana here." And he was like, "Yeah, right, fuck you," and just hung up because he thought like we were pranking him.
Yeah.
So they called back and they're like, "No, we're serious." So they were like, "Yeah, your cousin just cursed us out and hung up on us, but he's still
Oh,
coming."
that's great.
Yeah.
Well, when I started in college, the big event of the year is the Michigan State games, a big
Yep.
rivalry.
Yeah.
And my freshman year, it was in Michigan. It was in Ann Arbor. And one of the first weekends, my roommate parents came up for Sunday.
Yeah.
And he was a motorcycle bum from Livonia, Michigan, suburb of Detroit. And we were instant best friends and things were great. And his parents loved me.
Was he
I
the
loved
one
him.
that his parents were Croatian, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
God,
okay.
you
Shout
did
out
read
me.
the book.
Yeah.
So a couple weeks later, we go to Michigan State game, and my buddy's brother had a house, so we started drinking right at the kickoff. And by the time the game was over, we were so drunk, and we came out of the apartment building yelling, "Michigan State, Michigan State!" I guess somebody cold cocked me,
Yeah.
and I started ranting and raving and going nuts. And they just looked at my friend and said, "Well, nothing we can do. We got to cart him away." So I wake up. I'm in jail in Ann Arbor.
Oof.
I know nobody. I've been in town for a month from New York. I don't know. The only person I know at all is my roommate's father, who I met for an hour weeks before. And I call my roommate's father in Livonia, which is an hour from Ann Arbor at least.
Who's a Croatian immigrant.
He's just and I said, "Mr. Puskas, is a little awkward, but this is his next roommate, and I'm in jail." He came from Livonia. He bailed me out and drove me back to Michigan State. And from the time we got in the car together, we were best friends every second up until the day he died. And it was like, I mean, I can't imagine how awkward it is, but it's like, if you have no choice, that was my only call. Either that or lock me up and throw away the key. Yeah. And he of course thought it was the funniest fucking thing in the world.
Yeah.
Are you happy? Are you happy, you asshole? One of those type rides.
Yeah. Kids being kids. He knows what you're doing. So I want to kick it.
Come on, Mr. Puskas. I wanted to get to know you better. You're an asshole.
So I'm going to kick it to Jana for some cute questions real quick. Jana, go ahead.
So, Jackie, when's the last time you cried?
When I asked him to be on the show.
I get a lump in my throat.
But make it funny, okay?
No. I get a lump in my throat over everything. A good movie.
Yeah?
Oh God.
Yeah.
Where you hide your head from your girlfriend.
Yeah.
Probably a good friend of mine died a couple of weeks ago, but you just don't sit alone and cry.
Yeah.
But a movie is something that is a spike and you cry, but I can think back to things that happened in my life and just start crying. Crying is healthy. It really is healthy. I was never somebody like, don't let anybody see you. Yeah, fuck that,
Yeah.
No, and that's a good thing too. That is healthy. I'm the same way. I think it's, there's nothing wrong for like a masculine it's not, you're not a pussy if you cry at something. For me, it's like,
it's not like we have some high bar and I have to hit the high bar before,
Yeah. I'm the same way. If I see something about like my kid or like something with my old man, like something like that, I'll get like a little choked up. But or if I think about something, but
we had to put my kitty down and that destroyed me. But you get a lump in your throat. But as far as crying,
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe I seem to. I don't know.
Yeah.
But then, meanwhile, I'm crying over some ridiculous Seinfeld episode. What the fuck?
Yeah. Crying and laugh. Like, I mean, I cry when I laugh real hard too. So, you can get that. But either way, go ahead, Jana. What's your next one?
Sensitive. So what's your sign?
Keep off the grass.
Oh, geez.
No bare feet.
I'm an Aquarius born on Valentine's Day.
Oh, shout out, fellow Aquarius. Nice. Very nice.
Sensitive and romantic.
Do you want to hear my story about that?
Hell yeah.
I was born on Valentine's Day, so I was Jack of Hearts always. It always got me in trouble with my girls.
Oh,
because
I love
it was my birthday, so I'm fuck you celebrating you. It's me.
Yeah. I would have hated that.
And so I'm in a movie 15 years ago with Florence Henderson, Mrs. Brady.
Okay.
And it was a big deal. It was kind of fun.
Yeah.
And I had to make out with her for a whole afternoon, all the different takes. So we're
Not
French
a bad
kissing
day
for
at work.
hours. And it was great fun. They brought me back all the way to Las Vegas so I could do more in the show because we were having so much fun. So word gets around and I get a call from the guitar player in my college band. And he says, Martling, how wild is it that you're in lovey-dovey in this movie with Florence Henderson and you guys both have the same birthday? So what are you talking about? He says, she was born on Valentine's Day. I said, listen, you half a homo. It's bad enough that you know when my birthday is. How the fuck do you know that? And he said, well, listen, I knew you were born on Valentine's Day because that was the night you would always get extra drunk and be a bigger asshole than normal. So we were always prepared for it. And then I was watching Mike Douglas one day and Florence Henderson was on there. And he said, oh, I hear you were born on Valentine's Day. And Florence said, yeah, that's right. And in my mind, I said, oh, same as Martling. So then I saw you in the movie with her. I thought it was kind of funny. So I called up and mentioned it. So here I know that me and Florence have the same birthday. Okay.
Yeah.
For what it's worth. And they called me to come back out and go to the Palms Casino in Las Vegas because they made me into the bus driver. I was her love interest making out at Santa Anita racetrack. They never said what I did. Then all of a sudden I was the bus driver taking all these old ladies around.
Okay.
And this kid there's three guys are pulling a scam. They're gonna sneak fake chips into the Palms Casino. So they put these fake chips in Pringle jars, Pringle canisters.
Yeah.
And Florence and all her road partners, all these old women, are going to do this. And I'm the bus driver. Okay. So we're getting ready to shoot this. And her partner in crime was Eileen Ryan, who I think I got the name right. Whatever, it's not the one from the Beverly Hillbillies. Maybe it was Irene Brennan, maybe. But we're sitting there and we're behind a kind of curtain because we're going to shoot, playing dice and stuff like that. But the place is operating, except for a few cameras. The place is going normal.
Yeah.
And we're behind this curtain, and I'm sitting here, and on my left is Florence Henderson, and on my right is Irene Brennan, and she's Sean Penn's mother. Okay, so for whatever reason I found that out too. But it didn't matter. So we're sitting there, and I'm equipped with this knowledge that me and Florence are both born on Valentine's Day. And we're sitting there, and it's kind of a lull. What are we going to say? And I said, Florence, we share a birthday. And she goes, really? You were born on Valentine's Day? And I said, yeah. And Irene Brennan goes, oh, Sean was born on the same day as Robert De Niro. And Florence Henderson leans over and says, how is Bobby? And I said, yeah, how is Bobby? It was just so fucking perfect. All of a sudden, I was like, I'm in show business.
Yeah, that's great. Just yucking it up about Bobby De Niro.
How is Bobby? Oh God, it's one of my favorites. And they laughed.
Story.
Yeah.
The name of the movie is Venus and Vegas, and with an ampersand. Venus and Vegas. And the whole world is in it. I mean, it's really fun. Joe Rogan's in it.
Oh wow!
One of the guys from everybody at the Disconnected Parts.
Donald Faison's in it.
Donald Faison. What, you got the list there? Yeah, it's a crazy.
Jamie Presley and
Jamie Presley did that movie, then got famous, and then got unfamous before it was released. Unbelievable.
Yeah,
Jamie
one of the
Presley
guys from ER was in it, and
Eddie K. Thomas.
He was the main guy. And the third guy of the group that were pulling the scam was the guy who raised the money and wrote the thing. And it was the greatest time. And it was produced by Paul Bernard, who was a good friend. And I was in California, and I get a phone call, and I look, and it's from Paul Bernard, and I say, hello, Jackie. Hello, this is Louis. I said, why are you on Paul Bernard's phone? He said, because we're making a movie together. And Paul grabs his phone and says, yeah, we're in California at Santa Anita racetrack. It's a shame you're not out here. You could be in the movie. I said, I am in California. And next day I'm on the set making out with Florence Henderson. I'll send you some pictures. They're just spectacular.
Hell yeah.
She's licking ketchup and mustard off my face. And
I mean, if that's not like bucket list, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, check
when
that
it's on
off.
page 6, they had us listed as an item on page 6, and she had to dispel the rumors. She was 70. She was 70, and people said, "Did you do anything?" I said, "No, but if she wanted to, I certainly would have." She was so cute.
Oh yeah,
and so hot. She said, Jackie, we have to really kiss. I said, well, I have every intention of really kissing.
You don't have to tell me twice.
I'm no Mike Brady.
Yeah.
So that was great. That was great fun.
Great. Awesome. Great story. Jana, go ahead. What's your next question?
So I'd like to know what your toxic trait is. Like my toxic trait is meeting someone and then immediately forgetting their name. So Jerry, I'd like to know your toxic trait.
That just is something that comes with age. It's like when somebody says hello to you and says their name, you're automatically trying to think of the next thing you're going to say to them, and it goes flying right past you. They have people. I had a friend that took a course on remembering how to remember people's names. There's so many things like talk back to them, using their name in a sentence. There's all these things. This guy took a course where it said, if I say, what's your name? And you say, Matt, I mentally put a plaque under you, drill a screw in each corner mentally, and then write out Matt on this little thing under your head. And I guess that causes you to be concentrating on it long enough, but it is so annoying. And the thing is, you usually forget the names of somebody you would care to remember. The thing is, when it's somebody you don't give a fuck about, you don't care what you say next, so the name goes in. If I meet Sandy Koufax, I want to think what I want to ask him. I go, Yogi, like fuck. Yeah. So who knows?
Nice. So, all right, very cool. So that was J-Dub's questions, Janice Q questions corner. We're going to keep it moving. So where we left off was we were just talking about you're just about to get onto Stern. So like we said, it wasn't luck. You had 3 albums and you're sending them out to hundreds and hundreds of people. Just Howard happened to pick it up, and he gave you a call. So initially you went on to host this talent contest, and there
was me and a guy from a record company, and he was letting people sing, Frank Sinatra songs from phone booth on the Jersey Turnpike, and we were just sitting there to cast the vote just to make it more interesting for whatever. They must have thought maybe this guy would be fun. And at the end of the day, they said, wow, you're fun. Why don't you come back next week?
Yeah.
And that's, boom.
Next week, turn into next month turn into next year. And then you're there. So, but you honestly, you really were I feel like you probably I don't know, maybe you would have had fun when you're on the serious era, but I think you were in the golden era. Like you were just so red hot. You were on the come up. Everything was going good.
Yeah. But me and Billy were there during the golden years.
Yeah.
But we didn't happen in on the golden years. We were the fucking reason it was the golden years. It's
Agreed.
Like, the 1927 Yankees, those guys weren't just lucky enough to be on the team. They were the fucking reason it was the 27 Yankees. And, I just hear from people over and over that the longer ago it becomes, the more golden those shows become. I think they even scrub all the shows now because they don't want people coming up and say, what happened to the old days?
Yeah.
That might sound pompous, but that's just what I hear from everybody.
No, it is what it is.
No, it's not. If it's true, it's not pompous. That's just
right.
The truth.
Speak those facts.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to hear those old 1995 shows because Stern plays old shows, but it's all old serious shows. He doesn't play the old, we were in Philly, so it's 94-1 to us, but I haven't heard. I used to work with a bunch of foreigners. And when I was 15, the show would be on working out of a pickup truck and just be blaring. And they were Russians. Some of the dudes didn't even speak English, but they'd be giggling. And I'd be like, what you don't even know what you're laughing at.
There was a distinct vibe that jumped out of the radio. One of the greatest things, and I take pride in the fact that all my stories sound like lies because that's how good they are. Right. I had walked out on the show, stayed out 4 times. I think it was the 5th time when they didn't meet my salary and they just decided to let me go to hell. But 3 or 4 times before that, I had quit the show and said, that's not enough money. And they wound up bringing me back and, coming to a nice compromise. And some of them were very creative. I went in and Mel Karmazin, the head guy, said, look, we just don't have more money, which is just a fucking lie.
Yeah.
And I said, I'll tell you what, give me a little bit more money and give me an extra plug.
Yeah.
Howard used to read my plug at the end of the show.
Uh-huh. Now,
the height of the show is 7:30 to 8:30. By the end of the show, and sometimes we go to 11:30, at 11:30, there's 1/20th as many people listening because they're at work. Blah, blah, blah. I said,
Yeah.
I want an extra plug in the middle of the show. He said we could do that. So from that time on, every show, Howard had to read my plug, another plug. So I would put it on, like if I'm working in Riviera in Las Vegas, one day I'd put up the note. I'd physically put up the note at 7:30, and then the next day I put up the note at 8:30, and the next night at 7:45. So it hit every different set of listeners,
Right.
and that was the single smartest business move I ever fucking made. And
That's
he
a
never had
genius move.
he had
For real.
no trouble. You know, that was part of my deal. So he read my plugs, hell no high water. And at some point, it was going on so long that Howard would have so many commercials built up that before he came back, there'd be like 20 minutes of commercials. And then Fred would say goodbye. I said, Howard, you got to do me a favor. Do my plug before we go into the final commercial bank.
Yeah.
And he would say the same thing every time. He'd say, anything for my joke man. And just as we're about to go to the last commercial, he would read my plug, and then
that's got to make you feel good, because he's like, he knows this is a business and everything, but you're his guy, and like he's there to support you and help you, and he's like, anything to get the word out, I'm here for you. And like, I know it's part of the deal, but I think it seems like, at least from what it sounds like, that he genuinely wanted to do it and genuinely wanted to help you because you guys worked together and he was your pal. Right.
You know, it was so important. And the thing that was most amazing, by the time I left that show, he was so beyond ever thinking about ever needing another penny. What he wanted to do was, expand and be big and be king of the mountain, but it wasn't about money. And what I don't understand is I would sit there, and for 4 or 5 hours, we would have the time of our lives every single day. Gosh. And the fact that he let that go away, that's what's amazing. I mean, we had a party every day, and it's like, you know what? We don't need his party anymore. And it was bullshit. I'll never know what was in his heart of hearts. Do
you think he was getting pressure from like the back end? Or?
I have no idea. I'll never know, because he calls the shots.
Oh, really?
If he told everybody, I want you to come in pink, everybody would have dressed in pink.
Yeah.
Not that he was a bully, he just knew what he wanted. I think maybe one day Beth, his new wife, said, Jackie's kind of cute. Well, that's the end of you. You know what I mean? So, I'm not saying that happened, but it was probably something so left-handedly stupid. But who cared?
Was there ever like a competition to compete for his attention in a way? Like it seemed like you and Fred like really worked together, right? Like you guys were like bang, 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 and maybe in a competitive way, but still like it was to escalate the show. Me and Fred were we were locked arm in arm. He is the single funniest, fastest, most talented person I think I've ever met. It's between him and Billy West. I mean, Fred, if you're talking to Fred before you finish your sentence, he had something funny to say. He knew everything. But he was a Nazi. He would have taken a bullet for Howard, and there was no questioning where his alliance was. Yeah, which I don't blame him for at all. Yeah. But with a lot of people, they would compete for his attention, but me and Fred didn't give a fuck because we were too important. Yeah, whatever. That sounded pompous too, but not important. It's not pompous if it's true. You're part of the chemistry and the makeup of the show, an essential part. And honestly, I think you're kind of downplaying yourself in a little bit, because it's very true, man. You were a big part of that show, and there was a noticeable difference after you weren't there, and everybody knows that. But so when you were there, though, like. And I don't want to be a drag about this, but there was plenty of good times that outweighed the bad times. And it wasn't even as much like on show, you guys had a blast, but there was some times when you guys are hanging out off of the show, right? Like, just hanging out with the guys, that you're just ripping it up. When you're hanging out, like outside the show, are you trying to come up with stuff to be like, oh, let's do this, so we'll talk about it on the show next week, kind of thing? No. In fact, you never learn. You never learned that, like when we got in the bathtub with Jessica Hahn, it never dawned on me that, of course, that was going to be the whole show the next day. I'm drunk and I'm having fun. Yeah. I finally learned, like I'd come in and sit down and start bitching about Nancy before we went on the air. And we go on the air, oh, Howard, he was bitching about Nancy. I'm like, when are you going to learn? And you get to the point where, if you want him to talk about something, you complain about it in such a way like,
Brer Rabbit, don't throw me in the briar patch,
Yeah.
and like, don't throw me in the briar, born and bred in the briar patch, you fucking idiot, But it was, it was fun. And hanging out was already so outrageous. You didn't have to go, we're playing poker at the Garden City Hotel, or, you didn't have to turn on the craziness. Like if I'm with a group of people and I'm getting drunk, we're playing cards, of course I'm going to be an asshole. It's not like, let's be an asshole for the show. No, let's be an asshole because we're having fun,
Yeah.
It wasn't let's act up,
Yeah. That's probably why it worked, though, because it was organic. And like, if you forced it, it wouldn't have worked. It would have come off as fake, phony, but it was organic. And one of the best stories I loved from your book, which we'll have a link in the description of this episode for Jackie's book. I highly recommend it. Bow to Stern. Excellent read. But one of the funny ones was the Super Bowl finger. And so it's the Giants from the Super Bowl, right? And you had an ex-Giants player at a party, and he had written, or someone had written "Giants suck" on his.
Let me tell you.
Okay, yeah. I'm butchering it. Sorry. Go ahead.
Leonard Marshall had 2 Super Bowl rings.
Yeah.
And I had just driven all the way from North Carolina or Atlanta. I was working the Cheetah 3 in Atlanta for a week.
Uh-huh.
And that's where Howard always had the whole thing. Well, this is stuff that actually, was laid into my head because there was such crazy stories, and I never heard the end of it anyway.
Yeah.
But that's where Howard always got the thing. Oh, when I met Jackie, he was working in strip clubs, Yeah, sure. So so I drove all the way up, and we're at Neil. Wow, I can't believe that. We're at Neil's house.
Okay.
He's got a big TV, and this guy named Tony O, who was I think he was an engineer when we were at NBC.
Okay.
And we'd recently come from NBC to K-Rock. And Leonard Marshall loved the show. So we got an actual giant watching the show with all of us.
Yeah.
And Tony O pulls down his pants, and on one cheek it says Giants, and the other cheek it says suck.
Yeah.
Now let me give you some preamble.
Yes. This is great.
There was a All in the Family show.
Yep.
And I can't believe I got to know the guy that wrote this. You remember my name, Jose Jimenez? Bill Dana. He did the Jose Jimenez, the Polish, the Puerto Rican astronaut. Okay. He sold like millions of records, but he wrote a bunch of the
of the
shows for the TV shows, and he wrote this particular episode. And what it was Sammy Davis Jr. was coming to town, and Edith must have put in for some contest, and they won Sammy Davis Jr. coming to their house for dinner.
Yeah.
And Archie was so racist and crazy, and it was so great. And as he's about to leave, Sammy Davis is about to leave the house, and all of a sudden they walk out, and there's a million photographers there, journalists. Okay. And Archie is like petrified. And the guys come up to take a picture, and Sammy Davis says, "On 3, man." And he goes 1, 2, and on 3, he turns and plants a huge kiss on Archie's cheek. And it was the front page of every newspaper, and Archie was crazed. So all of a sudden, this guy pulls down his pants, says, "Giants suck." And somebody says, wait. Ronnie said, let me get my camera. He gets his camera. He says, pull down your pants again. I said, Ronnie, take the picture on 3. And we went 1, 2, and on 2.5, I stuck my finger so far up his ass, it might have come out his mouth. If you see that, I have that. You see that picture, you don't see any of my finger. And then Gary said Jackie didn't wash his hands, and then he went. It became a whole thing. But it was such a classic. Such a classic.
They talked about it on the show for years, right? That wasn't just a week. That was they referenced that for years.
On 3, man. 1, 2. And I felt guilty because they stole Sammy's book. It was Sammy's act. And I was at the Friars Club, and this guy behind me says, "Joke man, give me a hug." And I turn around and give the guy a hug. It's the Friars Club. I said, "Fucking Bill Dana, you know who I am?" He says, "What? I'm your biggest fan." And we were friends until he passed away. And I told him the story about Sammy Davis and the finger. He just died.
That's a great story. One of the great things I love though too is like your legacy is so set in stone because of the fans of the show. And these fans loved you so much, love you still to this day so much. But one of the greatest things that showcased this was an incident. You're driving into work, right? And it's, I think it was a flat tire, right? On the Long Island Expressway.
All right. So before you fuck this all up, I was working at Chuckles. I was working at Chuckles in Mineola.
Okay.
And which was fairly close to the expressway. And I said, you know what? I'm not going all the way home to Bayville. I'll spend $2, whatever it was, and get a motel room.
Yeah.
And so I'm so much closer because at that time in the morning,
it's a murder.
Minutes being crazy. And back in this time, it looks much different now. But where the Cross Island crossed the expressway was an on and off, and it was grassy knoll, and it's hard to believe that's how it was. And I'm running late. And I've got incredible headache. And I'm hungover like crazy. And just before I get to the overpass of the or where the roads cross, I get a flat tire.
Yeah.
And I'm on the right-hand lane of the expressway, and I know I got to get off of this.
Yeah.
But I'm tired, and so like.
And you're in a Volvo station wagon.
Right, and you got to make a decision. You can't stay there and try and check. So, and with every passing minute, there's so much more traffic. It's hard to explain. At 5:45, it's like, there's X amount of traffic. In 5 minutes, there's 2X, and then there's 3.
Yeah.
So clunk, 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 clunk. And where the off ramp from the Cross Island onto the expressway is there, I clump, clump, clump across the curb and across the thing and across the curb, between cars somehow. And I'm in the grassy knoll there.
Yeah.
And I'm freaking out, and I'm calling, and Volvo had a thing called Volvo on call.
Yeah.
And of course you call and you're on hold and you're on hold. I wound up, me and Nancy used to call it Volvo on hold.
Yeah.
And I don't know what I'm going to do. So I figure I got to call the show. We're just about to go on the air. I call and say, Gary, this is Jackie. I got a flat tire on the expressway. I don't know when I'm going to get there. I just tried to put on a spare. And I'm missing one of the pieces of the jack, whatever it was, but I can't change it. I don't know what to do. He says, well, let me see what Howard says. We're just about to go on there.
I can't.
He goes, and Howard comes and says, Robin, Jackie's in trouble. What else is doing? Jackie, what's up? I said, listen, I got a flat tire, and I don't have a piece of the Volvo jack, and I'm stuck here. I'm right where the Cross Island leads into the expressway. And I'm telling you, I didn't hardly finish the fucking sentence. Like 5 or 8 cars pull off the fucking off the entrance, and the guys push me out of the way, jump up. They changed my tire like it was the fucking Daytona 500, put everything back in, put me in the car, and then they went out and stood there and stopped traffic.
Oh my God.
So I could pull back on. So I went from feeling the lowest I've ever felt in my life.
Yeah.
And now I'm on my way to work in my car. And it was so like, holy fucking God. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the great part of that story is they were going to do the Howard Stern movie without me, and maybe without Fred, because they were not going to show a guy handing Howard notes. And then they figured out how to finagle it. So they threw away the first script, and there was so much pain involved because I'm there in the trenches with them.
Yeah.
And they're making a movie and blah, blah, blah. So all of a sudden Howard says, listen, I didn't like the way they were doing my movie. It's always they, it's all him, but it's they.
Yeah.
So we're redoing it again now. And Ivan Reitman is going to do it. And what we're going to do is we're all going to sit around in the office and talk to Ivan and Len Bloom, the writer, and Danny, Ivan's guy. And Ivan says, all right, I want one by one, I want you to stand up, tell me roughly who you are, how you wound up on the Stern Show, and maybe a quick anecdote. Yeah. So it goes around the room and it gets to me. I tell him who I am and what I do. And I told them the story of the car. And they went fucking wild. And after that, Len Bloom came over to me and said, that story is going to be the greatest thing in the movie. I said, you don't know anything about this show. That is a Jackie story. Even though it's Howard's power and Howard's umbrella that he gets total credit for, that would be too much Jackie.
Yep.
That will never see the light of day. And it never saw the light of day. But it's a great story.
It's incredible. Absolutely incredible. And it just shows like the power that, the show had. And You like it's not even the power, it's the love. They loved you. They loved you. How many people
they loved Howard and
they loved
they
you
were
too,
helping
man.
me, but you
They
know,
loved you too, dude. Come on.
I just dream for the day that somebody comes up and says, "Do you remember when you pulled over on the expressway to flat tire? I was one of the guys that pulled over to help you." I'm dying for that to happen.
They're gonna. Well, funny you mentioned that. They're here right now. No.
Here they are.
Alan, come out.
This is your life.
Yeah, no, that's great. So, I mean, what you're saying though in the movie is true. Like, because they replaced you in the bathtub with Fred. It was actually you in the bathtub in real life. And then, but they did have you in the sloppy pussy scene, right? Or it was, sloppy pussy, right?
Right. But the movie was conveniently made that he had hit superstardom just as I was coming on the show. But he was just hitting number one in New York. It never got the syndication. They figured a way to, and it was brilliant. It was great,
Yeah.
And the whole story, the sloppy pussy, all that shit was just so fun. The whole thing,
But in the book, though, it did say like towards the end, like maybe it showed that you had a little remorse because it seemed like Howard would try to reach out at times to develop a more relationship with you. And it's at least in the way you were saying it in the book is that maybe you didn't take as much advantage of those times with him. Like when he would come out to Long Island with you.
He showed up a couple times, but it was kind of hard to put your thumb on why. Because he plays his cards very close. The last thing I wanted to do was pretend it was more than it was. It wasn't. There was never any animosity or anything. Like me and Nancy went on a double date with Howard and Beth. We always had a great relationship. It was. We just say they didn't want to meet what I wanted, and I didn't price myself out of the ball game. That's why it was so hard to believe.
Yeah,
but that's water under the dam. What are you
gonna do? I do want to talk about too. So our mutual friend, Bob Miles, great guy. We actually, I'm dating us, but I released this episode today, which is available now on all podcast platforms and YouTube at Working Perspectives Podcast. But he told your guys' connection was Les Paul, right? Was kind of how you guys got mingled, right? And you have a crazy Les Paul story where he was a big fan of you. And I know I'm butchering it, right? But you would end up going to a show, you'd go on, and then you'd have a tiff with Jagger too, right? Like
no, boy, you get just enough of a story to make me know what the fuck you're talking about. But you can bump it from Keith Richards to Jagger. I'll take that any day.
Oh fuck it! You're right. It was Keith Richards.
Hang out with Keith
what?
Anyway.
You know what?
Yeah,
I'm on the verge. I'm on the verge. If I lose power, I'm going to have to unplug my headphones.
To plug your phone in.
Yeah. So we'll keep going, and then we'll.
Yeah.
Because when it says you're low on power, I might have. I don't know how much I got. So
it's usually 20%.
that was the night I met Les Paul.
Okay.
And they've been trying to drag me and Fred to see Les Paul forever and ever and ever. And it never dawned on me that he would be a fan of the show. Like my friend Adam never said, "Oh, by the way, he listens to the show." But he's old. Old people said my father used to listen to Barry Gray all night and never sleep because he's an old man, And Les was like 85. And one night, Carrie Ash from Sam Ash, married to Sam Ash's grandson, said, "Jackie, I'm coming to get you and Nancy, and you're going to see Les Paul tonight. And if you don't come, I'm going to come up and drag you. It's Les's 85th birthday. The Rolling Stones are going to be there, et cetera, et cetera."
Okay.
So she picks us up in the limo. We go 2 blocks, and there we are. And we're sitting alongside the aisle, 2 feet from the stage. And on his way down the aisle to the stage, I hear Les Paul say to Adam, "So you tell me Jackie the Joke Man's here tonight?" I was like, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. And Keith Richards is sitting over there with his mother and his stepfather. And he's got, his cornrows and he's got his scarves and he's a rock star.
Yeah.
And the place is packed. It's Les's 85th birthday.
Yeah.
And he goes up on stage, plays his opening songs like he always does. And he said, "Listen, there's a guy here I've been meaning to meet. He knew the show as good as any fan, but who knew that?"
Right.
And he calls me up on stage, and I go up on stage, and the guy had thinning red hair, and he was arthritic, and glasses, and a twinkle in his eye, and it was my fucking father. And we looked at each other, and I don't know if that ever happened to you, but it was like an instant, like, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So he's talking, and he said, so you tell jokes? And I said, yeah, that's what I do. And he goes, well, give us something. I said, no, you don't want it. He said, come on. He said, I can handle whatever you got. Okay. And the place is packed in. It wasn't the Iridium. It was the place before the Iridium. And I mean, young people, old people as fans for 40 years.
Yeah.
And I actually have tape of this. I don't forget what joke it was, but it was really dirty.
Yeah.
And the crowd went nuts. And I gave him a kiss and said, I love you, man. And I sat back down. He plays a song, and then he invites Keith Richards up.
Okay.
And Keith Richards comes up, and the first thing he said was, it's going to be a little tough to follow that bloke. I'm like, holy mother of God, right? So along the way, I find out that his mother was a blues singer. So she's in the music business. She's heard everything.
Yeah.
All the time, I was on stage with Les 60 times.
Yeah.
And he always had different people. I never saw him call up a person for a second time ever.
Yeah.
And after Keith Richards and then a song, he couldn't shake me up. And he goes, Jackie the Joke Man, come back up here. And I come back up, and he says, listen, tell me about this. Now, you're sitting there, and he calls me up, and I said, listen, before you say anything, I just want to say, Keith, I apologize to your mom. I would have never told an off-color joke if I knew your mother was here. Meanwhile, she's a musician, so that was totally tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah.
And he stands up, he says, yeah, well, I'll tell you something about your mom. The place goes wild. And I said to the crowd, look at this. I'm getting heckled by a Rolling Stone. How fucking cool is that? And they went nuts. So I turned to Les, and he goes, so what do? You sit there and you're writing things for him to say as you go along? I'm like, Les, listen, it's your birthday. And by now I'm feeling I was still drinking. It was 2000.
Yeah.
And I got a couple of beers in me, and I'm Superman. I said, listen, this is your birthday. These people are all here to see you and see you do your show. Why don't you do your show? And when you're done, we'll go to the bar and have a few beers, and we'll talk about the Howard Stern show.
Yeah.
And you know what? Who knows? Maybe Keith will join us, and you know what? Who knows? Maybe he'll even treat. And you know what? And if he doesn't have any money on him, maybe he could trade in some of those beads he's got in his fucking head. I am telling you. And when it died down, I said, now I'm fucking with a Rolling Stone. And and I walked up, and I got that on tape. It's like, it was spectacular. And me and Les were best friends. Yeah. From then till the day he died. And every time I went to see his show, I brought everybody from everywhere. I'd always go up, and I'd always tell jokes. And there was no bigger fan of my filthy jokes than him.
Oh, that is great. Hey,
that.
So, man, that is a great story. So, I want to kind of get a little, what's life like now? So, like we said, you're doing shows and everything like that. So, one, we'll have a link in the description of this episode for jokeland.com. You can find all your tour, where you're going, everywhere you can get tickets, what you got going on. We'll have the TikTok link in here to get your daily jokes that are great. And then, we'll also have a link for the book and everything like that. But
all that stuff is on jokeland.com. My joke book, my autobiography, my second joke book.
Yeah.
You can give out my email address. I give it out to everybody.
Oh,
I
wow.
got a guy that answers my email, me. and it's just jokeland@aol.com, and people ask me anything, and they're like, this is bullshit, you're not going to reply. And I always reply and send them shit, and because I get a kick out of that.
Yeah.
And my gigs are fewer and far between. I always tell people I'm retired until the phone rings.
Yeah.
But I get up in the morning, and I take a nice long swim, and then I come in and have some breakfast, and I do my exercises for my stupid knee.
Yeah.
And then do any one of a billion different things. And it was like about a month ago was my first gig back with my bad leg, and I got away with it. And last week I was at Giggles in Boston with Lenny Clark, who's like the icon of Boston.
Oh, love Lenny Clark. He is great.
We did 4 killer shows, and then I drove back 7 hours. I'm almost back in the ball game every morning. I swim 2 or 3 times a day because it's such good stuff for my knee. And I just live in the garden spot of the world, and no complaints.
Oh, that's incredible. That is great. And then,
No, don't get me wrong. If you know any whores you want to send over.
Sure. Right. Justin's mom will be there later.
A classy lady named Dorothy. I went to Doug's. Jack, I got a question for you. You ever run into Artie Lang?
I did Artie's podcast like 3 or 4 times. I did his direct TV show that I think was before that.
Yeah.
You know, it's really funny because there's a documentary on me that we finally got distribution, which I'll tell you all about once. I don't want people to say, so you got distribution, where can we see it? And not be able to tell them where yet. So
Right.
You know, it was ready when it was ready when the pandemic started, which just kills me.
Yeah.
But Artie agreed to be in the documentary. And then it was so slow getting going, he wound up getting beat up and going to jail and getting his face smashed in and then getting out of jail and getting out of the hospital.
Yeah.
But we had puttered around for so long that he was still going when he got out of the hospital. So he's in the documentary. He said some really, really flattering stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I text him, and once in a while he'll write back and say, listen, man, I love the fact you're right. You know, thank you, you know. Because we're asshole buddies. We rode on that same train for a long time.
Yeah.
So, you know, you never know, you know.
Every once in a while,
I just drop a text and say, listen, I love you. If you ever want to get together and shoot the shit, you know. Because I don't drink, you know, so I'm the ideal guy, you know.
Yeah, you could actually hang out with him now.
Yeah. So, okay, Justin, you had a question?
No, I mean, my question was just about Artie. That's all.
Okay, very cool. Jackie, is it all right if I do have can I throw a joke at you? I don't want to step on your toes or anything.
How is that stepping? That's my fucking business, you asshole.
All right. I didn't know if it was like a thing. All right. So the joke is, what is a Jewish lady's favorite type of wine?
Take me to Florida.
It was, when are we gonna go to Miami? But yeah, the same thing. Yeah.
What's the difference between a Jewish girl and a 747?
What?
The 747 stops whining when you get to Miami.
Oh, that's great. That is great. Justin, do you have a joke?
You know what? Here's one I actually wrote. You know why Jewish girls don't swallow?
Oh, why?
They want to be the spitting images of their mothers.
Do you have a favorite joke, Jackie?
Huh?
Do you have a favorite joke?
No. Well, you know, I love them all. I really do. One of my favorites. I was at stage at the Iridium, same place as Les Paul.
Okay.
And I was doing a show with Mark Hudson from the Hudson Brothers, who was a summer replacement for the Sonny and Cher show in the 70s. And he's just the greatest, most talented, wonderful guy. And he did a thing called Thursdays on the Hudson. And he'd have different guests like Billy J. Kramer and, you know, oldies people. And he had a great band. And I'd go there and get up and tell jokes like I did with Les. And it would always be packed. So the show was done and we're shooting the shit in the back. And I come back out and the place is still packed because it's all oldies but goodies friends and, you know, from a million places. And a guy comes up to me and the place is really packed. He said, Jackie, I've been a fan for 40 years. I know you know all the jokes. I'm such a big fan. I'm telling you, I got everything you got, but I just got to try a joke on you. And I said, listen, I've never stopped anybody. Every late night, every bar room, every LSD trip, every fraternity party, I listen to every goddamn joke because you never know when you're going to hear one that slip by.
Yeah.
And this guy told me a joke that's so disgusting that I can't use it in my act because there's certain jokes, like I don't tell Jesus Christ jokes because, believe it or not, no matter how funny they are, it gives people pause.
Yeah.
And if they stop for 2 seconds, I think, am I going to get hit by lightning? They miss the next setup and it throws you off.
Yeah.
This joke is so disgusting. It's so funny, but it's so disgusting. If somebody goes, oh, they missed the next setup, so I don't use it in my act. But you could tell it on the radio and you could tell it to your 5-year-old son. Now, how's that?
I'm very intrigued.
Yeah, I'm dying here. Can't wait.
Can't wait to take it to my new job.
Girl calls the doctor. She says, Doc, I got diarrhea. Can I take a bath? And he says, if you got enough.
I was literally on the joke line yesterday.
Yeah. That is a great one.
That was my favorite one off the joke line yesterday.
Mine was.
I leave the same jokes on there for too long, but I don't give a shit.
No, dude. I call it like I was like in a mood the other day, and I was like, "Fuck it, I'll call the joke line." And every time it's like, why do Jewish guys watch porn backwards? Because they love to see the hookers give the money back. Fucking lost my shit.
People tell me they know the jokes are beyond there, but they call it because my laugh puts them in a good mood.
True. So true.
Matt said you'd be on the show. He gave the number. I was like, oh, I remember the joke line from the fucking show. I call it, and that your fucking like classic laugh. I was like, fuck, I haven't heard that in so goddamn long.
You know, let me tell you one thing that I don't know if people know. My TikTok, I've been trying to put up a new joke every day or every once in a while, you know, as close as I can.
Yeah.
But I don't think people know that all the jokes that I've done are all on there. Like you can go on my section of that site and back up. You can listen to 200 jokes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're all good. They're all semi-clean or whatever. And some are stupid. And so, but who gives a fuck? You know, it's just for a laugh, you know?
Yeah. No, I do. I was doing that the other day when I was scrolling through your TikTok after I subscribed. I was like, God damn. And you got some hitters on there. You got a couple, like you do good numbers, man. You really do well on the TikTok.
I got one joke, got 650,000 hits.
Golly, that's incredible. The most we have.
Do you know what joke it is? Do you know what joke it is?
Oh, which one?
3 guys and a girl are stranded on a desert island. And after 1 week, the girl is so ashamed of what she's doing, she kills herself. And after another week, the guys are so ashamed of what they're doing, they bury her. And then after another week, they're so ashamed of what they're doing, they dig her up again.
Oh, that was great.
650,000.
Oh man, but that is the most. We have a clip on our TikTok, which is at Working P Pod on TikTok and Twitter. But on ours we have one clip. It got up to like 80,000, and I just remember like because you get the notifications on your phone, you're just like, whoa, what's going? Like it is pretty cool, but I can't imagine 600,000. God.
Well, you know what's happening too is the more people that are signing on when seeing the jokes, they realize they can look at the old ones. So I look at the old ones that had 2,000 and now they're 4,000 and some are 5,000 and now they're 11,000, you know.
Yeah.
But I still have no idea if there's any way to make money on it. Or I just like to, I like working for tips. I love to look at the phone and see if it's going up, you know?
Yeah. On it. I mean, I know, I think I'm not sure what the monetization is for TikTok. I know for YouTube, it's 100,000. I think it's the same for Instagram, but yeah, I wonder TikTok's probably around 100,000 once you get 100,000 followers, that is. But yeah, no, yours is great too. Cause it's, scroll, bang, scroll, bang, scroll, like you're hitting them, you know what I mean? Yeah. And it's great. I love it.
Advertising. What happened was a guy in Phoenix had a couple radio stations, and I had met him along the line in Minneapolis or Nashville or something. Everybody in the radio business stays in the business, but they jump. He's a DJ, and then he's the general manager, and then he's a station owner. They jump around. This guy said, "I really want you to do something for my stations." And I said, "Listen, I've done everything. All kinds of ways. What I'd like to do is one joke. We'll call it Jackie's 420 joke. And every day at 420, you play one joke. So that people know they don't have to listen to 30 jokes. They listen to one and they want to remember it. That's the one to remember. So they're tuned in. They listen to that. They go tell their friend, where'd you hear that? Jackie's 420 joke on WFUCK.
Yeah.
And it was a major hit until the goddamn pandemic.
Yeah.
And then at the end, I had like 200 jokes, but they were just me laughing and telling a joke with no advertisements, no hello, this is Jackie, thanks for you. Just giggle, joke, giggle. And I realized, wow, I could just put these up on TikTok and boom, the work was done, so it was fun.
No, that is great, man. That is great. Hey, if you ever want help putting it up on YouTube, let me know. I'll throw them up there for you. Because I don't know how to do that,
but I take any help I can get.
I'll help you, brother. It'll only take, I'll do it. No problem. But
now, where are you? I don't even know. Are you guys all in Philadelphia?
Yeah, I'm in, Jana's in she's in an area called Fairmount, which is like kind of towards the middle of the city. I'm part of the city called the Northeast, which is like, I'm in like little Moscow of Philadelphia. And Justin's
I'm in
like
the suburbs,
just outside the city. But me and Justin, we grew up, we've known each other since we were kids. And then me and Jana worked at a bar together called Vinny T's. And that's how we met years and years ago. But
I was headlining in Philadelphia 4 years before I met Howard. The Comedy Works, the Comedy Factory Outlet, Bananas,
Helium,
the comedy cabarets, all those joints.
So many of them closed down.
Do you hear about this place, Live Philadelphia Casino?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just worked there a couple of months ago. Just killer show. They were great. And I'm working at a place further down south in Sweetwater, and I'm doing a big show at the Brigantine Elks. But those are all like hours from you guys, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I
Brigantine,
mean,
New Jersey. It's a little bit of a drive. Not too crazy.
Yeah, you're at the on October 28th, you're at the Sweetwater Marina, and then you're at St. John's Condon Hall in Bergenfield on the 29th. And then, like you said, you're at the Brigantine Elks Club in Brigantine, New Jersey on November 26th. Yeah, I mean, no, dude, yeah, they're not too far, but I'm in Jersey a lot. My mom lives in Jersey, and Jan is from Jersey. So I would, dude, I mean, I might just, I'd love to go see
I would
it just to
100%
shake a hand.
go.
Yeah.
Hop in and say hello.
I absolutely
We gotta
will.
go, you guys.
It's
I'll
a
go.
date.
Hell yeah.
We'll do a live recording. No.
Yeah.
We'll show up.
Bring your microphone. All right, I'm going home. I'm gonna go and make trouble with my girlfriend.
Hey, Jackie.
man.
I mean, so dude, honestly, dude, it was just such a privilege to have you on the show. I can't thank you enough. Usually me,
Thank
Justin.
you so much, Jackie.
Yeah, me, Justin, and Jana are usually on the same page with this, but we would love to have you back on the show if you'd be willing to come back on.
You just say, you know what I usually say is anybody that's like fans that listen to this that had other questions, just amass a whole bunch of, because the most fun for me is when you ask me something and you ask me a simple question and then I go on and on until you tell me to shut up. You know what I mean? So, get the listeners with some questions coming from different angles. And I always tell the truth. And I never say, "Oh, I don't want to answer that, man."
Yeah, yeah.
I won't rag anybody out, or
yeah.
Nothing subversive,
We do have to ask you just one question. When you eat wings, Jackie, are you the drums or the flats when you eat wings?
Yes.
Son of a bitch. That's
like
classic answer.
Drums by default.
When I work at Giggles at Lenny Clark's brother's place, me and Lenny and Christine Hurley always headline the shows together the last 5 years. And when I leave to drive to New York, Mike gives me a double order of wings and I open them up and I open up the blue cheese and put it next to it on the seat next to me.
Yep.
And just drive home and just
right out the window.
All the meat off it and then just throw the bones out the window. And sometimes I call my friend John Peasy, who does the same thing. And sometimes we're both eating wings on the way home and we're talking funny. Just funny,
That sounds like that's another idea for a show. Wings in the car with Jackie Martling,
and I think I actually have it on video. We actually did that at some point. I was eating wings and I was telling my friend Tom about this will be next time. Next time, remind me to tell you about dickprince.com.
Dickprince.com.
Yeah,
that's
looking at you, but I'm behind a screen and I'm taking my dick and dipping it in finger paint and then making a print of it. And then other people do it and you got to match it up to who's who. It's just so funny.
Oh, that's a great game. Oh, that's great.
Because it's filthy, but it's nothing dirty about it. And meanwhile, you got girls in bikinis parading around. So you get a good print,
Yeah, they're holding it up. Yeah, yeah. It's not. We'll make sure it's not cold in the room. Where you're doing it. Yeah, make your best showing. But
you got to give a guy every chance. All right, I'm going.
All right, Jack. Thank you so much, man. Take it easy.
Gang.
All right, we're coming to the top of the show. Before we get out of here, Jalen Dub, anything you got to say to the Jalen Dub Nation before we take off?
My 14-year-old self is very proud and very happy.
I love it. Yeah, great stuff. Very nice. Jana Heartstopper Hilo, anything you want to say to the Heartstopper Nation before we take off?
Yeah, see you guys tonight. Thank you.
Love it. Very nice. Well, speaking of seeing you tonight, this has been another episode of the Working Perspectives podcast. I'm Matt Lavelle, accompanied today by Jalen Dub, Justin Richardson, the Heartstopper, Jana Hilo, and our guest today was the one and the only Jackie the Joke Man Martling, jokeland.com. Links in the description. In case you're wondering, you can find all our stuff and all our content on all podcast platforms and YouTube at Working Perspectives Podcast. You can also on Instagram, Working Perspectives Podcast, and you can join us on the Twitter and the TikTok at Working P Pod. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, please email us at workperspectives@gmail.com. And please like and subscribe so we can keep bringing you this sweet content. Thanks for listening. Stick around for the ad read. Thanks. See ya.
Bye, Tom.
Do you have a message or a story inside of you that you've been waiting to tell? Have you always dreamed of writing a book, but are intimidated by the complexities of the book publishing world? Perhaps you want to use a book to launch your public speaking or consulting career. If so, please reach out to Scott and Bell Publishing, located right here in beautiful Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Scott and Bell Publishing handle all genres and authors with all experience levels. Scott and Bell Publishing gives authors 100% creative freedom and a higher royalty split. They can be found at www.skotbell.com. That's www.s as in Sam, K as in Kite, O as in October, T as in Tom, B as in Boy, E as in Edward, L as in Larry, L as in Larry.com. That's Scott and Bell Publishing, where the authors go.